Chapter 131. When Zhou Wei had been caught, he was still in a stupefied state. Zheng Tan's independent regiment and Madame Dong's General Administration of Harmony had jointly launched a mass roundup operation at the airport, and finally ended smoothly after 2 hours. Of course, it was Wang Ling who had released the news of Zhou Wei's escape. There was a big baccarat bar in the center of Songhai City, and the boss of the bar was Zhou Jia, the leader of Green Gang. After Zhou Wei had been arrested, all the major news media had scrambled to report the incident at the same time. In the bar, Zhou Jia was completely stupefied when he saw the news. After receiving Song Qingshu's opinion, he had almost immediately contacted his contacts and won them over. After finding all the connections he could use, he helped Zhou Wei change his foreign nationality and leave through the Green Channel. But Zhou Jia had never expected that he would still fail in the end. This web novelist Wang Situ, who on earth was he? When he saw Zhou Wei being censored in the news, and then personally handcuffed by a fat police officer and taken away from the scene, Zhou Jia felt his scalp go numb. There were many emotions in it. There was anger, and there was also fear. Green Gang had been in Songhai City for so many years, but Zhou Jia had never felt like this. He felt like a fish being toyed with in the palm of someone's hand. Silently lighting a cigarette, Zhou Jia dialed Song Qingshu again. "Brother Song," on the other end of the line, Song Qingshu also sighed. "You don't need to say anything, I saw the situation on the news." "Then what should we do now?" Zhou Jia really was at a loss. "My suggestion now is to quickly relocate Green Gang. Even if it's to a neighboring city district in the short term, don't stay in Songhai City. Don't let this incident affect your Green Gang and cause even greater losses." Song Qingshu rubbed his brow, feeling a headache coming on. "I know you must be feeling very aggrieved, but we still have to face reality. We can't touch this person in the short term. Also, it's best not to try to investigate his true identity." Zhou Jia nodded and said, "I understand, Brother Song." Now, whether it was Green Gang or Mo Immortal Castle, they were all grasshoppers tied to the same thread. Zhou Jia was well aware that the reason why Song Qingshu was still willing to help him was because Mo Immortal Castle was also afraid that if Green Gang was affected by the aftermath of this incident, it would affect Mo Immortal Castle's development in Songhai City. Zhou Jia's heart was as clear as a mirror on this point. "Brother Song, don't worry, I'll immediately start making arrangements to evacuate all of Green Gang's main forces in Songhai City within 2 days. Emichim, just evacuate as soon as possible." Song Qingshu nodded. "Although we can't take revenge immediately, we still have a chance to win. And in order to strike back in this matter, we must learn to win against the heavens by half a pawn. Do you know where the chance of success lies?" On the other end of the phone, Zhou Jia was silent. Winning against heaven by half a point. He cupped his chin and pondered for a moment. Finally, he raised his head and answered, "It's Qi Tong Wei." Song Qingshu pulled a long face. "Of course not. Zhou Jia, I'm slow-witted. Please give me some pointers, Brother Song." Song Qingshu, "Then hurry up and tell me where the maker of the stone ghost mask is. It's already been a few days, why are you still hiding it? You won't be able to produce any offspring with that information, trust me." Zhou Jia, this Weibo battle over groping ended with Father Wang's victory. In the end, not only had Father Wang defeated his opponent, he had also been crushed to death with one finger by the strongest fan whom Father Wang had invited. On May 28, the 5th Friday of the semester, Wang Ling saw the following news in today's Cultivation Morning News. First, what's the real reason behind the mysterious Eastern force behind Wang Situ's complete victory? Download the Weibo app and check it out. Second, a temporary worker has performed a miraculous feat again. Experienced Officer Wang personally apprehended the groping suspect Zhou. In the interview, the experienced Officer Wang said in a simple and honest manner that this was all the people's credit. Third, yesterday, after being chased and intercepted by people and a group of cats, the groping suspect Zhou, who was wanted nationwide, was apprehended at Dawang International Airport. Experts say that there is a 99% chance that this group of people and cats are the descendants of Chaoyang City residents, Wang Ling. When Wang Ling returned to school in the morning, almost all the topics in class today revolved around the arrest at the airport on Thursday. Because of Father Wang, the groping case had continued to ferment in the last 2 days, and everyone in the country knew about it. Who knew where Dopey Gua had gotten the news, but he started to spread the gossip in class in all seriousness. Did you know? I heard that the suspect in the groping case has a very powerful background. His brother is the leader of Songhai City's largest underground gang, the Green Gang. He's extremely powerful. When he was at the airport back then, he was so close to slipping into the Green Channel and escaping. Super Chen frowned. He can't even escape with this kind of background, and the municipal government is paying close attention to this matter. Doesn't that prove that Guru Wang Situ has an even more powerful figure behind him? Feather Lin, it's so early in the morning and you're talking nonsense. In any case, I'm just concerned about what kind of punishment that person will receive after he's arrested. It won't just be detention, right? Lotus Sun shook her head and added, this matter has blown up quite a bit. This person probably won't be able to get out until he's locked up for a few years. Last night, the municipal government also issued a notice requesting our Huaguo Water Curtain Group to launch a pepper spray for women to coordinate with the government's promotion of preventing perverts nationwide. Feather Lin was instantly a little disappointed. That's it. I thought this person's Tower of Babel would be chopped off. Everyone. This was 2F*** King Brutal. While everyone was discussing this, Dopey Gua suddenly interjected. I have a video of the arrest at the airport yesterday. If anyone wants it, you can look for me. It's 50 yuan each, and I'm honest with you. After saying this, the whole class was deathly silent. Seeing that he was ignored, Dopey Gua looked a little embarrassed. However, Master of Dopey was Master of Dopey in the end. He immediately grabbed Little Peanut, who was on the side collecting his homework, and eased the awkward atmosphere. Classmate Su Xiao, I know you're very interested in my video. Do you want to buy it? Little Peanut pulled back his neck and broke free from Dopey Gua's unexpected bear hug. The expression on his face was incomparably disappointed. Dopey Gua was so frightened by his expression that he immediately let go. It's just promoting a video, you don't have to be so unhappy, right? Little Peanut shook his head. No, I was just wondering why I was targeted by a video seller. Dopey Gua, everyone. Chapter 132. It was still May 28th on Friday in the 5th week of the semester. During the Tao Talismans class, Teacher Pan announced something miraculous in class. Standing on the dais, Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses and said mysteriously, Students, after careful consideration by the higher-ups and in cooperation with the municipal government, we've increased the publicity of women's anti-wolf education. The military training that was originally planned for sophomore year will be carried out ahead of schedule. In the middle of next month, there will be a 5-day military training activity at the Cultivation Military Base in Songhai City. After hearing Teacher Pan's words, the whole class instantly boiled over. Whether it was boys or girls, the moment they heard the word military training, they would definitely be happy. Because during the military training, the school wouldn't assign homework. But as students of number 60 high school's elite class, the students of grade 1, class 3, who knew Teacher Pan's character very well, didn't show much joy on their faces. Because for Teacher Pan, since it was homework, no matter how much it was, it had to be made up. Wang Ling's group of people who had gone to number 59 high school for the exchange meet back then was the best example. Just as the whole class started a new round of discussion, 3 people silently covered their faces. Super Chen covered his face because he was crying tears of joy. As a hot-blooded sports nerd, Super Chen felt that it was finally time for him to show his talents. Wang Ling covered his face because he hadn't expected the group activity to start again so soon. He vaguely remembered the image of Odd Shua carrying Secretary Dakong's two hairy legs the last time he had gone to number 59 high school. Every time he thought of this, he felt a headache coming on. After all, for Wang Ling, the group activity was the beginning of all the trouble. The last person to cover his face was Little Peanut. That was because he had heard from clan leader Yu in grade 3 that the school required a physical examination before the military training. The school authorities needed to understand the students' specific physical qualities in order to formulate a scientific military training plan in line with the military training base. Under Teacher Pan's gaze, the whole class fell silent once more. Sure enough, Teacher Pan cleared her throat and continued to say, "Class is suspended this afternoon. Student Lotus Sun will lead the girls. Student Super Chin will lead the boys to the infirmary on the 3rd floor for a physical examination. Everyone has to go. If there's no special reason, those who can't go will go home and add 2 more exam papers to their homework." Hearing this, Little Peanut silently withdrew the hand he had just stretched out. Wang Ling. Sure enough, compared with the physical examination, homework was the real root of all evil. Ever since he was a child, he had actually rarely participated in a physical examination. That was because with the quality of his mortal body, there was no need for a physical examination at all. For cultivators, as students of a foundation establishment high school, the physique of a foundation establishment high school was naturally much higher than that of an ordinary person. Wang Ling had always felt that the school's one-sided physical examination actually didn't have any substantial effect. In other words, they didn't check the places that should be checked and blindly checked the places that shouldn't be checked. Wang Ling felt that what the old aunties in the infirmary were really concerned about wasn't the students' physical fitness, but simply wanted to see how they were developing in certain areas. Hence, Wang Ling and Little Peanut both had headaches about the physical examination. It was just that the reason was the exact opposite of Little Peanut's. Little Peanut felt that he was too young and hadn't reached the standard of a normal boy, and that he would be laughed at. Wang Ling felt that he was too big for a normal boy, and would attract attention and attention. In the afternoon, there was a long line outside the infirmary. Super Chen had brought all the boys from grade 1, class 3, and they would go through the physical examination first. Just as Wang Ling had predicted, a short old auntie with a slightly hunched back stood at the door of the infirmary. She wore a white coat and a pair of unfathomable reading glasses, and her gaze was like a searchlight as she scanned the crowd. "Be quiet, don't make any noise. Wait for Dr. Song to give you a physical examination." Dr. Song. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that this form of address was a little familiar, and sneaked a peek with his heavenly eye. F***K, this Dr. Song was Lai Meng Meng. At that very moment, Lai Meng Meng was wearing white gloves with an expressionless face. He rubbed some lubricant on his middle finger and checked the health of a male student's anus. As soon as the tip of his finger pierced into the skin, the boy revealed an expression that resembled Liang Fifan reciting a poem. Wang Ling. Someone heard a male student screaming inside and couldn't help but ask in the team, "What the F***ck? Don't tell me everyone has to go through it once." The old auntie who was standing at the door to maintain order gave a kind smile. "This is just a sampling test, 2 per class." Then, the old auntie glanced at a booklet. The students in charge of the sampling test in grade 1, class 3 are Super Chen and Hero Gua. Are both of them here? Super Chen and Dopey Guo couldn't help trembling. Very soon, all the boys in class 1 had been checked, and it was finally grade 1, class 3's turn. Led by Super Chen and Hero Gua, the 2 students in charge of the sampling test, a group of boys entered the infirmary one after another. There was a strong smell of disinfectant inside. Lai Mingming's expression finally changed when he saw Wang Ling, but he quickly regained his composure and put on the evil white gloves. He pointed at the small bed in front of him to Super Chen and Hero Gua. You two, take off your pants and lie on the bed, then, open it yourselves. The two of them nodded fearfully and walked over. After the two of them were in position, Lai Meng Meng closed the curtains. Through the shadows of the curtains, everyone could see what Lai Meng Meng was going to do next. Lai Meng Meng finished applying the lubricant. There was an evil and slippery sizzling sound from behind the curtains, and then Lai Meng Meng hit the bullseye with the Millennium Kill. Right after that, Super Chen's pained and shrill scream came from behind the curtains. Little Peanut was already so scared that he covered his eyes and couldn't bear to look at it at all. Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. In ancient times, there were people who sang about flowers in the backyard across the river. Today, there were people watching from behind the curtains. Very soon, Super Chen was done with the testing, and he tiptoed out from behind the curtains with his hands on his butt. Several boys in the class snickered on the side. Is it that painful? A nosy boy patted Super Chen on the shoulder. Super Chen glared at that boy and returned the gesture with a, "If you're so good, you do it," expression. At that moment, everyone could see that Lai Meng Meng had already changed into a new pair of white gloves and had applied the lubricant on them. But this time, the scream that everyone had expected didn't come. It could only be said that as the successor of the 5 pens, Master of Dopey was in the end Master of Dopey. They immediately questioned Lai Meng Meng's level and ability with a professional eye. Behind the curtains, Dopey Gua sighed. "You're poking in the wrong place. It's very easy to get hurt." Everyone. What the hell? Why are you so familiar with it? Dopey Gua, you're an intern, right? Lie down, I'll teach you. Wang Ling, as an ordinary person, when facing a foundation establishment stage cultivator, he would not be able to do anything. Lai Meng Meng's thin and weak body couldn't resist at all, and he was directly pressed down on the bed by Dopey Gua. When he felt Dopey Gua's white gloves poking into his backyard, Lai Meng Meng was already in tears. Damn! It really wasn't King easy to earn extra money these days. Chapter 133. Because the General Cultivation Hospital didn't have enough manpower for the pre-military training physical examination, Lai Meng Meng had been recruited online as a temporary worker. He was only in charge of the posterior flower sampling test. Apart from that, there were also routine physical examinations such as height, weight, blood and urine tests. Of all these dazzling tests, nothing was more painful than the so-called physical examination on the physical examination form. By standing on a scanner and using ionizing light technology, one could quickly detect bone density, bone condition and the development of the boy's little brothers. This was the part that Little Peanut was most afraid of. During the blood test, Wang Ling felt very embarrassed, because when the female nurse had inserted a needle into his finger, the needle had actually gone askew. These needles had been specially customized by the General Cultivation Hospital, and could easily penetrate the flesh of a foundation establishment cultivator. Not believing it, the female nurse had inserted 2 more needles in a row, but both of them had gone askew. Just as the female nurse was about to complain to the head nurse about the quality of the needles, Wang Ling stuck his finger into his mouth and bit it open. The female nurse, Wang Ling, had managed to get through the first few parts without any mishaps, and had dealt with most of them. When it came to the final physical examination, Wang Ling was really nervous about it. Before science and technology had matured, specialized orthopedic experts would come to schools to perform physical examinations on cultivation school students. Furthermore, these old experts had one thing in common, and that was that they were very good at visual inspection, which had probably been passed down from Madame Dong. Without needing a ruler at all, they could tell at a glance how long a boy's little brother was and how it was developing. However, with the rapid development of science and technology in the last decade or so, it was clearly much more efficient than before. What used to be the most troublesome part of the physical examination was now all that was needed to stand on a machine and shine an ionizing light on it. Little Peanut was very nervous and restless, his eyes drifting about as his mind wandered. Because of his physique from a young age, Little Peanut's physique was a lot worse than that of normal foundation establishment students. Even his little brother seemed to be a little shorter than that of normal boys, which had haunted Little Peanut ever since he was a child. So much so that he usually only dared to go to the bathroom when there was no one around. In this respect, Little Peanut was actually very similar to Wong Ling. But the reason why he didn't go to the toilet was because he was too big. Super Chin and Dopey Gua, these two thick-skinned fellows, took the lead, and one after another, they stood on the ion machine and finished their measurements. On the other side, 5 meters away, 2 female nurses were staring at the screen. The expressions on their faces were as calm as if they had been through a storm. Soon, it was Little Peanut's turn. Standing on the plasma machine, Little Peanut closed his eyes a little fearfully and blushed. The ionic light slowly shone down from the top of Little Peanut's head. At that moment, Wong Ling, who was behind Little Peanut in line, secretly wagged his finger. Among the 3,000 great Daos, there was a technique called grafting that allowed one to graft a part of one's body onto another. In order not to draw too much attention, Wong Ling felt that he could totally cooperate with Little Peanut. It was just that once the flower grafting spell was used and the spell was undone, a third of the body parts couldn't be retrieved. Very quickly, the beam of light shone on the middle of Little Peanut's body. All the boys saw that the 2 nurses in front of the screen were covering their mouths, revealing a shocked expression as if they had seen a ferocious beast. Holy shit! This was too big. How could such a small boy have such a thick and muscular part? Little Peanut slowly opened his eyes and somehow felt that something wasn't right. He saw the gazes of the 2 female nurses, and it was as if they wanted to eat him up, making him feel uneasy all over. 20 minutes later, everyone was done with their measurements. The physical examination report was quickly compiled by the computer and printed out. Everyone had a copy. After school, Little Peanut cringed as he looked at the report in his hand. He was shocked. 37 centimeters. F***K, this had already completely surpassed Europe and America, hadn't it? This was basically a donkey's penis, wasn't it? Was he that big? Little Peanut unzipped his pants in disbelief to take a peek, and was dumbfounded. Although it wasn't as exaggerated as the 37 centimeters on the physical examination report, it was clear that his little brother was already at the level of a normal boy, and even a little above average. Why was this happening? Student Su Xiao stood up from his seat in astonishment. This was the first time he had felt this heavy feeling, which he had never felt before. He was so moved that tears gushed out. Little Peanut had actually really grown up. Had the wish he had made on his birthday really come true? Thank you so much. Almighty Cultivation God. Wong Ling. You got lucky. When Wong Ling returned home that night, he found that Mother Wong and the old man weren't there, and the kitchen was empty. Only the Wong father and son and Loopy Toad were left in the huge Wong family. The groping incident was currently in the limelight, and Mother Wong was the heroine of a story for the first time. All the major news media reporters were doing everything they could to create some juicy news about her. Whether it was Father Wong or Mother Wong, they couldn't bear to be disturbed. So after the couple discussed it, Father Wong decided to let Mother Wong and the old man take his salary card and quickly go on a holiday to relax and avoid the limelight. He didn't even take his luggage with him when he left. He could just buy clothes and daily necessities on the way. For the first time, Wong Ling felt that Father Wong was so rich. Sure enough, a man who doted on his wife was the most handsome. But with Mother Wong and the old man gone, dinner became a problem. In theory, Wong Ling didn't need to eat at all, and could rely on absorbing the spirit qi of heaven and earth every day to maintain his bodily functions. But after so many years, dinner had almost become a habit for Wong Ling. If he didn't eat dinner, it would always feel a little pointless. There was no way to order takeout. The Wong family's small villa was too remote, and wasn't within the range of takeout services at all. The only way now was for the father and son pair to take Loopy Toad out to look for food. Father Wong searched for the nearest business near East Wong Road. There was only one shop within 800 kilometers of East Wong Road called Midnight Dining Hall. Father Wong frowned, because he quickly found that this shop's rating was a little low. The overall rating on the Dubon Food Review website was actually only 2.6, and this was AF*** King 10-point scale. When they opened the menu provided by the shop, both father and son were stunned. A small bowl of Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles, a medium bowl of Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles, a large bowl of Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles, and then. Chapter 134. If it was a normal cultivator, it would take about 20 minutes to fly 800 kilometers using the sword riding technique. Although it was a little far, it was just a teleportation distance for Wong Ling. He had Father Wong and Loopy Toad stick close to him, and 2 people and 1 dog arrived at the restaurant's entrance in a flash. This was a restaurant that looked a little old-fashioned. Its walls were made of wood and brick, and it gave off a dangerous feeling that it was on the verge of collapsing in the wind. The words of Midnight Dining Hall were written on a horizontal board at the entrance. The corners of the board were already a little cracked, and the owner had carelessly stuck 2 pieces of all-purpose adhesive tape on it to mend the holes. This made the restaurant look even older than the old buildings left behind in the Shao family compound. When they arrived at the restaurant's entrance, Wong Ling suddenly remembered that he had passed by this place before on his way to school. But because it had been too fast, he hadn't been able to see it clearly. But today, Wong Ling finally realized something. It turned out that this wasn't a public toilet. Don't be fooled by how shabby this restaurant looks. The more shabby it is, the more delicious the food. Wasn't that how that popular Chef God's little store came to be? The father and son stood at the entrance of the restaurant, and Father Wong shrunk back in the cool breeze. Somehow, Wong Ling felt that he didn't sound very confident. The restaurant didn't have a door, and there was a tattered, sun-faded rag hanging at the entrance. Above the restaurant was an old-fashioned iron shutter door, which had to be pulled down with a long-handled hook by the side of the door before it could be locked every day. 2 people and 1 dog pulled open the rag and entered. The restaurant was so small that it could only fit 4 wooden tables with plastic stools on the sides. When Wong Ling entered, he saw the owner leaning against the kitchen door, smoking a cigarette. The owner had a buzz cut and was in his early 40s. His cheeks were unhealthily sunken and his eyes were very deep. There was also a 10-centimeter-long knife scar running from his forehead through his right eye to his neck. It was clear that this was a man with a story. "Ha, you're quite early today." Seeing that customers had arrived, the owner hurriedly stubbed out his cigarette, pointed to the handwritten menu hanging in the middle of the restaurant, and put his hands on his hips. "Apart from Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles, you can order whatever you want, as long as I know how to make it." "Father Wong, do you have fish ball noodles?" The boss shook his head. "We don't have any coarse flour." "Father Wong, what about fish ball rice noodles?" The boss shook his head again. "No fish balls." "Father Wong, if you don't have anything, then why did you open a shop?" The boss raised his eyebrows and said rather righteously, "It's not that there's nothing, but that you don't know how to order. Back then, Master taught me cooking, and I was his proudest disciple." Father Wong, Wong Ling. If your Shifu saw that his proudest disciple was actually working in such a rotten shop, he would definitely choose to die, right? Father Wong really didn't know what to order, so he simply looked at the menu and said, "Then let's have 2 medium bowls of Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles first." The boss nodded without saying a word. She turned around and went to the kitchen to prepare. Right after that, Wong Ling saw the boss turn on the range hood, which rumbled non-stop like a tractor. About 10 minutes later, 2 bowls of beef noodles with pickled cabbage were ready. The boss placed a bowl in front of the Wong father and son. He had also thoughtfully prepared a plate with a shaved beef bone on it, which had been specially prepared for Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad looked at the beef bone disinterestedly, and then contentedly licked the fly on it into its mouth. The boss. What surprised Wang Ling was that these 2 bowls of noodles looked pretty good. The bowls were a little old, but they weren't dirty. Father Wang slurped up a mouthful of noodles, then raised his head in surprise. It actually tasted pretty good. The only flaw was that the pickled cabbage wasn't sour enough. Father Wang frowned. Boss, your pickled cabbage doesn't taste like it was pickled in Laotan. It's not sour at all. The boss asked strangely, who told you it was pickled in Laotan? Father Wang pointed to the sign. Can you read? Laotan pickled cabbage. Let me tell you, I'm also a cultured person. Please give me a reasonable explanation, otherwise you're deceiving the consumers. The boss pursed his lips. I'm Tan Siming, people who know me well call me Old Tan. I made this beef noodles with pickled cabbage. So I named it Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles. Does this make sense? Wang Ling and Father Wang. The Wang father and son were unexpectedly unable to refute this explanation. It was now almost 8:00 in the evening, and the Wang father and son were halfway through their noodles when there was suddenly movement at the door. Wang Ling saw that it was a young man with slanted bangs and a broken guitar on his back. He looked like a pretty down-and-out vagabond singer. Because he couldn't afford to rent a house in the city, the young man could only rent a house in the suburbs with the little money he earned in the city every day. Wang Ling had instantly read all of this from the young man's mind through memory reading. It wasn't that Wang Ling had deliberately read the young man's mind, but that it was a fairly natural way of thinking. Some people always like to write their emotions on their faces. It was very easy for Wang Ling to read the memories of this kind of person. If it was a man with a story, such as Old Antique or the boss standing in the kitchen right now, Wang Ling would never know what their pasts were unless he took the initiative to read them. It was very obvious that this young man was already a regular customer of the restaurant. When Boss Tan saw the young man, he directly nodded slightly and asked in a slightly magnetic voice, "Same old rules?" The young man nodded silently, carefully leaned his guitar against the corner of the wall, and found a place to sit down. Although the young man didn't speak, it was as if the boss's eyes could see through his thoughts. "I know, you participated in the talent show today. It looks like it didn't go very well." The young man lowered his head. In the kitchen, the boss prepared dinner for the young man as he comforted him. "Young man, you still have a chance. It's fine. Look, we also have a new customer today. Why don't you sing the song you participated in the talent show and let everyone listen to it?" The young man suddenly stood up a little excitedly. "Really, can I?" The Wang father and son put down their chopsticks at the same time and nodded seriously. Listening to a down-and-out vagabond singer singing in a deserted village restaurant was probably something Wang Ling would never experience again in his life. It was a very strange feeling. The young man bowed deeply to the boss and the Wang father and son, then cleared his throat and began to sing. "You stirred up the wind and clouds, swept me away, you lifted the rags, abandoned me, Father Wang, the boss, little brother, your heavenly silkworm potato shredded rice is ready, you should eat first." Chapter 135. Wang Ling's first impression of this vagabond singer was that he had a strange accent from who knew where. Of course, putting these issues aside, Wang Ling felt that the young man sang pretty well overall, at least his voice was still in tune, but if he wanted to become a true professional singer through a talent show, this young man was clearly far from good. Wang Ling's knowledge of music was very limited, and he was just an amateur who knew a little about the guitar, so he couldn't give a more professional evaluation of the young man's voice. But when it came to how to stand out in a talent show, Wang Ling felt that there were several essential factors. First, he didn't have to be particularly handsome, but at least he had to be pleasing to the eye. Second, his voice didn't have to be particularly professional, but at least it had to be recognizable. It was useless to just sing in tune. Finally, the third and most important point was that his life experience must be miserable. And the more miserable, the better. It would be best if he could move the audience and the judges to tears just by listening to the first 10 or so words of his story. Unfortunately, this young man didn't have any of the above conditions. As a vagabond singer, Tang Yuning clearly didn't have any plans for his unrestrained appearance, and at first glance, he gave off a dirty feeling. Furthermore, this young man's life experience couldn't be considered miserable at all. At most, he could be considered a poor singer who persisted in his musical dream. There were too many people like this in Huaxiu Nation. If you wanted to enter the limelight through a talent show, at the very least, someone in your family had to be terminally ill. Wang Ling put half a mouthful of beef in his mouth as he fiercely criticized the current talent show in his heart, but the young man's eyes were red as he stared at the heavenly silkworm potato shredded rice in front of him. As expected, am I not suited to be a singer at all? His voice was very low, and there was a sense of inferiority in it, but everyone heard it. It was very obvious that the failure of today's talent show had been a huge blow to the young man. Boss Tan turned off the roaring range hood and wiped his greasy hands with a rag. He slowly walked over to the young man and patted his thin shoulder, which had a distinct collarbone. Cheer up, little Tang. Who knew if it was because he was a chef all year round, but Boss Tan's physique was very strong, especially when compared with the young man's. Wang Ling had no doubt that if Boss Tan used a little more strength, he could directly smash the young man's shoulder bones. The owner of this shop was not an ordinary person. His cultivation was at least at the golden core stage. Wang Ling had noticed this as soon as he entered the room. Boss Tan looked at Tang Yuning and continued to comfort him. There was once a great man who said that the birth of a genius required 99% hard work and 1% talent. Maybe you didn't work hard enough. So, don't give up. The young man raised his head and looked at the boss as if he had seen a glimmer of hope. Is it true? But as soon as Boss Tan said this, Father Wang instinctively activated his poisonous tongue mode and quietly added, "Do you know that there's actually a second half to this famous saying? Although only 1% talent is required, 1% talent is the most important." Boss Tan, Tang Yuning was about to cry. Why did you have to say it out loud? Wang Ling. My heart hurts, buddy. It could only be said that Father Wang's poisonous tongue was getting better and better. This venomous tongue attack left the young man completely defenseless. Boss Tan felt very helpless about this. But it was clear that Father Wang didn't care about his poisonous tongue at all. Everyone had heard the saying, nothing in the world is difficult as long as you're willing to give up. Father Wang felt that since you didn't have any talent, continuing to persist was very stupid. Every profession had its own master, so why did you have to hang on to one tree? Why couldn't you hang on other trees a few more times? Shatter dreams with a poisonous tongue, so that young people could recognize reality earlier and walk on the right path. Father Wang felt that as an elder, this was the right way to educate and guide young people. Ling Ling, how about a song? At that moment, Father Wang suddenly turned to look at Wang Ling. Wang Ling was silent. Sir, does your son also study music? Boss Tan was a little curious. Father Wang shook his head. He's only in his first year of high school this year, and has learned to play the guitar in his spare time. He can be considered a music secondhand, right? But I think if he works hard, he'll own half of the music industry sooner or later. Boss Tan clearly didn't agree with half of the music industry, and shook his head. No, half of the music industry belongs to that teacher Wang Banbai. Speaking of which, this teacher Wang Banbai that Boss Tan spoke of could be considered an eccentric person. He had once boasted in the media that if the rock and roll world lost him, it would lose half of its territory, which was how Wang Banbai's nickname had come about. Now, this was a slightly teasing way of putting it. Thus, this vagabond singer expressed his strong dissatisfaction with Father Wang's promotion of his son. I learned music from a vocal music teacher. Your son is just a hobby, and you still say half of the music industry. Isn't that too much of an exaggeration? Go on. Ling Ling. It's time to show off your real skills. Father Wang suddenly gave Wang Ling a thumbs up and flashed his white teeth. Ding. It was as if everyone could see Father Wang's teeth flash. Wang Ling. Go on, mother of asterisk cur. Of course, Wang Ling refused. It was fine if he just wanted to play the guitar, but if he wanted him to sing, the problem was very serious. Because he was programmed not to speak. However, under Father Wang's burning gaze, Wang Ling finally compromised. First of all, Wang Ling was afraid that Father Wang would dock his allowance for no reason because of his refusal. Secondly, Wang Ling was a little concerned about the young man's disdainful expression. Then, should he perform a bit? Thus, Wang Ling quietly went to a corner and picked up Tang Yuning's wooden guitar. He took a deep breath and felt even more nervous than his usual life at school. Tang Yuning crossed his arms and sneered as if he were watching a play. Yo, nervous already? When I sing in the streets and alleys, I've never been nervous with so many people watching me. Wang Ling swept an indifferent glance over Tang Yuning, his expression unruffled. What on earth should he sing? Wang Ling thought for a while. There were actually very few pop songs in this world, and Huaxiu Nation didn't attach enough importance to music. But that didn't mean that Wang Ling couldn't listen to good music. His Heaven's Ear link could connect to various planes and world lines, just like a radio's FM. After pondering for a while, Wang Ling suddenly thought of a song from another plane that was very suitable for playing the guitar. Holding the guitar, Wang Ling strummed the strings a few times to test the sound. The sound of a youthful guitar rang out. Chapter 136. It was a young man's voice that was cold and aloof. Compared to the original song, it lacked the vicissitudes of life, but it had a more youthful vibe that only a young man would have. The song Wang Ling was playing was a cover of the song, Old Boys, by a group called the Chopsticks Brothers, from Another World line. This song was about the confusion of not being able to express one's feelings to the girl one loved deeply and being afraid of being rejected. It expressed the feeling that one was no longer young and that things were the same, but people were different. Wang Ling liked this song very much. Wang Ling remembered that he had once liked a girl when he had his first awakening of love. But because of his own reasons, he hadn't said a word until graduation. He had been afraid that he would hurt the other party. At that moment, Wang Ling was playing Old Boys in this rundown little restaurant with his guitar in his arms, and there was a different kind of emotion in it. As soon as he opened his mouth, both Boss Tan and Tang Yuning were directly intoxicated. That's the person I miss and love day and night. How on earth should I express it? Will she accept me? Maybe I'll never say those words to her. I'm destined to wander the world. How can I have any worries? Dreams are always out of reach. Should I give up? Flowers bloom and wilt, and it's the rainy season. Spring, where are you? Youth is like a rushing river, gone and never coming back to say goodbye. Only a numb me, not the hot-bloodedness from back then. Look at the falling flowers in the sky, wilting at the most beautiful moment. Who will remember that it once came to this world? This was the ace section of the song, but Wang Ling had already put down the guitar when he sang this part. Boss Tan was completely stupefied. There was actually such a thing. While Wang Ling had been playing, Boss Tan had also looked up the lyrics in passing, and found that there were no related searches online. This was enough to prove that this was an original song. This was just a teenager in grade 1, but he was actually able to write such a touching song full of youthful spirit. At that moment, after Wang Ling finished playing and singing, both Boss Tan and Tang Yuning felt inexplicably moved. They instantly felt that this teenager had a story to tell. This was a song they had never heard before. Just listening to a small part of the melody was enough to make them feel intoxicated. Boss Tan felt that he had already become this teenager's fan. This was probably the legendary Grandmaster's blessing, right? Wang Ling, only Wang Ling himself knew that this wasn't some ancestral master's gift at all. He didn't produce music, he was just a music porter. After putting the young man's guitar back in its original position, Wang Ling silently returned to his seat and started to eat noodles. His carefree attitude made it seem as if he had just done a very small thing, but it was an irrepressible blow to Tang Yuning's heart. Who the hell was this person? Tang Yuning was shocked. He drooped his head, feeling completely defeated. Back then, in order to learn music, he had abandoned everything and secretly used a sum of money from his family's demolition fund behind his parents' back, then gave all the money to a vocal music teacher. That money was originally reserved for him to use when he got married. Later, when the matter came to light, his family cut off all his living expenses. And Tang Yuning officially became a vagabond singer. Looks like I'm really not cut out for this. If he had listened to his parents' advice and not used the money, he might have had a wife by now. He would have lived in a brand new house, and maybe he could have teased his children, and found a stable life to live in. For the first time, Tang Yuning felt that his life had been a mistake. Was he going to persevere? After listening to Wang Ling's playing and singing, Tang Yuning began to seriously question himself. How much can a vagabond singer like you earn in a day? Father Wang asked. Tang Yuning's previous pride in having studied proper music theory had completely disappeared. He scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. It depends, sometimes it's raining, and I can't earn much at all. I sing everywhere in the hope that people will appreciate me for my music, and not pity me. There was silence in the shop. Tang Yuning touched his guitar, his eyes a little moist. I thought that given my ability, I would have no problem passing the auditions. Now, this is all I have left. Then do you plan to continue down this path? Father Wang asked again. Tang Yuning shook his head. I don't know. You don't know, I just want to. Father Wang raised his eyebrows and felt that this young man was quite persistent. An average person would have given up long ago under Father Wang's venomous tongue attack. These people often couldn't accomplish anything big, but this hesitation just showed that the young man didn't want to give up so easily. What did you think of my son's song just now? That song was really good. Tang Yuning was a little excited, but at the same time a little disappointed. Maybe I'll never be able to write this song in my lifetime. Have you ever thought that your failure in the auditions might have been because of the song you chose? Father Wang asked again. Sitting in his seat, Wang Ling raised his eyebrows slightly. He could already feel that Father Wang's attitude toward the young man was a little different. He had changed from a venomous tongue to an enlightened one. Father Wang was a storyteller to begin with. He had always had a strong grasp of the topic, and his ability to guide others was also top-notch. Wang Ling had once witnessed with his own eyes how Father Wang had guided more than 90% of a group of 2,000 pirated readers to read the original version again. Tang Yuning blinked and looked at Father Wang. Teacher, what do you mean? Don't call me teacher, it sounds so awkward. Just call me uncle. Father Wang waved his hand. What I mean is, if you don't mind my son's song, how about I sell it to you? Tang Yuning instantly stood up. Uncle, are you saying that you want to sell this song to me? But very quickly, Tang Yuning had a bitter and resentful expression on his face. But, uncle, I don't have any money. In this day and age, a high-quality original work was really hard to come by. Tang Yuning felt that if he submitted this song to any record company, he would be able to sell it for a sky-high price for the copyright. Father Wang silently lit a cigarette and put it in his mouth. How much money do you have on you? Tang Yuning rummaged through all his pockets. Putting the loose change and the cash together, he had exactly 33 yuan and 70 cents. Tang Yuning was anxious. Looking at Father Wang, he clenched his teeth, hugged his guitar tightly, gave it a fierce kiss, and handed it to Father Wang. Uncle, if you don't mind, I don't. Father Wong rolled his eyes bluntly. Boss Tan was speechless. This was too straightforward. Father Wong, why would I want your guitar? Can you eat this guitar? This guy is your life, right? How can you walk the streets without a guy? After that, Father Wong turned to look at the boss. Boss Tan, do you have pen and paper? Boss Tan nodded. Yes. Father Wong had always had a good memory, and he also knew some music theory. So after Wong Ling sang it once, Father Wong had basically memorized the lyrics and melody. Even if there was anything he missed, Wong Ling would fill in the gaps telepathically. He quickly wrote down the lyrics of Old Boys on a piece of paper. Then, he wrote a simplified score by hand and capped the pen. His actions were as smooth as flowing water. Finally, Father Wong gave the paper to Tang Yuning. The most precious thing about a dream is that no matter how big a setback, it can always be reforged. Tang Yuning's hands trembled as he gripped the paper. Father Wong exhaled a puff of smoke and shook off the ash. He got up, grabbed the 33 yuan and 70 cents on the table, and stuffed it into Boss Tan's hands. 2 bowls of beef noodles, 30 yuan in total. Keep the change. After that, father and son and Loopy Toad directly left the small shop, leaving Boss Tan clutching 33 yuan and 70 cents with a flustered expression on his face. After teleporting home with Father Wong and Loopy Toad, Wong Ling saw Father Wong leaning back on the sofa and letting out a long sigh of relief. Your mom maxed out my pay card, we have to be frugal these days. Wong Ling, Father Wong looked at Wong Ling earnestly and said earnestly, Look, I used my little wisdom today to save money on 2 bowls of beef noodles. Do you know what it means to run a household diligently and thriftily? This is it. Chapter 137. In all of Wong Ling's plans for life, apart from being able to live a stable life, there was almost nothing else he wanted. But he realized that no matter what he wanted to do, things always turned out contrary to his wishes. For Wong Ling, a little ordinary life wasn't easy to come by. May 29th, the 5th Saturday of the semester. In the morning, the doorbell of the Wong family's small villa rang. Because of the Wong Situ's wrath over a beauty incident in the last 2 days, Father Wong owed a lot of manuscripts, and had just gone to bed after pulling an all-nighter to write them. He could only open the door himself. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stood at the door with a bag in his hand. When he saw Wong Ling personally open the door, he hurriedly bowed and greeted him warmly. Good morning, Brother Ling. Wong Ling's expression was cold and detached. Sometimes, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that it was actually very tiring to be friends with Wong Ling. He had to learn to read the other party's expression, otherwise he wouldn't be able to understand what the other party meant at all. Wong Ling's current expression was the standard dead fish eyes. As one of Wong Ling's few friends in the cultivation world, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he could see a trace of confusion in Wong Ling's eyes. If he could sum it up in 4 words, it would be, what are you doing here? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal lifted the bag in his hand. I planted the broccoli that Great Senior gave me last time in our family's spirit soil. They were watered with morning dew every day, and they grew very well. I just harvested this bag of broccoli this morning. It's very fresh, so I wanted to bring some for Senior. Without another word, Wong Ling prepared to close the door. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly stuck his hand through the crack in the door. Brother Ling, wait. I'm here for serious business today. Hey, do you still remember that 3rd saint from last time? He sent a box to the villa, and I want Brother Ling to take a look at it. After thinking for a while, Wong Ling let go of the doorknob and let Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal changed into slippers as he entered the room. At the same time, he sighed endlessly in his heart. Nowadays, it really wasn't easy to come to the Holy Land to pay respects to the great seniors. Feeling that the Wong family's small villa was exceptionally quiet today, grenade-throwing senior immortal asked suspiciously, Are the seniors not at home today? Wong Ling was too lazy to explain, and casually pointed at the travel magazines on the coffee table. This was what Mother Wong and the old man saw yesterday before they left, and they didn't have time to put it away. Grenade-throwing senior immortal immediately understood. It turned out that the great seniors had gone on a trip. However, the location of the tour was a little strange, Hunan. South of the Milky Way. For ordinary people, that place might be a tourist attraction with beautiful mountains and rivers. But for cultivators, grenade-throwing senior immortal felt that it had no tourist value at all. South of the Heavenly River was not only lacking in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but it also lacked the element of fortuitous encounters. In order to make money from cultivators, the tourist attractions were painstakingly creating gimmicks. Right now, the tourist attractions that the vast majority of cultivators yearned for should be Old Devil Han's former residence, Black Ox Treasure Town, and the Holy Land of Cultivators, the Malagobi Desert. Grenade-throwing senior immortal stared at the travel magazine for a long time. In the end, he rubbed his chin and couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. I'll buy these 2 magazines later and take a look. There's definitely something strange about the 2 great seniors choosing this scenic spot. Wong Ling, grenade-throwing senior immortal, come to think of it, I don't remember there being any specialties south of Sky River, if you don't count manhole covers. Wong Ling didn't know how to respond to grenade-throwing senior immortal. That's right, Brother Ling. Let me have a look at that box that third saint sent. After this little interlude, grenade-throwing senior immortal finally returned to the main topic. Wong Ling nodded silently. Then, spirit light flashed in grenade-throwing senior immortal's hand, and a suitcase with a lock appeared in it. This is a suitcase sent by third saint. The lock on the outside is encrypted. To be cautious, Wong Ling first used his heavenly eye to check carefully to confirm that there weren't any traps on the suitcase. He was the one who had let third saint go back then. Although he didn't know where he was now, the other party had indeed fulfilled his promise to Mo Immortal Castle when they parted, and at the same time, he had withdrawn from the ranks of the 10 saints. Wong Ling thought that this briefcase probably contained the intelligence that third saint had obtained. Wong Ling touched the lock on the box and frowned. It was made of green steel jade, although it couldn't compare to the hardness of the universe level. However, he was also one of the best on Earth. But that wasn't the real problem, it was that third saint had encrypted the lock. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, "This lock has a very elaborate design. It doesn't have a lock core, but there's a 64-bit encrypted array inside. If you want to unlock it, you have to crack this small array. I've looked up a lot of information in the last 2 days, but in the end, I came back empty-handed. After studying it for a full 2 days, I still couldn't crack it. I wonder if Brother Ling has any brilliant ideas." As soon as he said this, grenade-throwing senior immortal saw Wong Ling reach out and pinch the lock. Then, there was a crack. The green steel jade lock was directly crushed into a pile of fine powder, and the suitcase bounced open with a bang. Then, Wong Ling pushed the suitcase in front of grenade-throwing senior immortal. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. This was 2F*** king simple and crude. As Wong Ling had guessed, after the suitcase was opened, he saw piles of materials. Grenade-throwing senior immortal took a cursory look and realized that these materials were actually the transaction accounts between Landscape Manor and Mo Immortal Castle. If he had the opportunity to sue Mo Immortal Castle in the future, these accounts would be material evidence. I never thought that Third Saint would even be able to get his hands on their account books. These are all solid evidence. At first, we were worried that we wouldn't be able to produce any evidence. These things could be considered a small surprise, but grenade-throwing senior immortal was also a little disappointed. Given the current situation, these material evidence wouldn't be of much help to the current situation. At most, it could only prove that Immortal Castle, which was a well-known educational institution, had an unspeakable chain of interest behind it. The lord of the castle was a very cautious person. As time passed, the loopholes in the accounts that Third Saint had found might be wiped clean bit by bit. For these people, money laundering was as easy as eating and drinking. Wang Ling stared at the suitcase for a moment. He pushed aside the piles of materials at the top, and finally found an inconspicuous secret compartment at the very bottom. This secret compartment had been processed with a special space expansion technology, and looked like the eye of a needle from the outside, but it still couldn't escape Wang Ling's eyes. It was conceivable that Third Saint had taken such a watertight security measure to prevent this suitcase from falling into someone else's hands. Even if someone took the accounts inside, they wouldn't be able to read them. But it was very obvious that the thing in the secret compartment was the key. As expected of Brother Ling. You could even find this. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal started to feel ashamed of his inferiority again. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used his spirit energy to pull out the thing hidden in the secret compartment. Chapter 138. An embroidered pouch. It looks like this is the real message that Third Saint wants to give us. These accounts are just a cover. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was suddenly a little excited. Whether it was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal or Wang Ling, they had both experienced Immortal Castle's way of doing things. It was watertight. But in the end, humans weren't sages, and this was true even for cultivators. No matter how meticulous their thinking was, they would still stumble. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rummaged through the contents of the embroidered pouch. In addition to a gray notebook, there was also a glass bottle filled with a black liquid. What's this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the bottle and sniffed it. It actually smelled like loquat cream, and he was instantly startled. Could it be this bottle? The legendary bomb that can make female live streamers wish they were dead. Wang Ling already didn't have the energy to ridicule this man who would act stupidly from time to time. This thing doesn't look like body-tempering liquid, the ingredients inside are a little strange. Under Wang Ling's dead fish gaze, the man in white finally became a little more serious. He carefully put down the glass bottle and flipped open the gray notebook on the side. As he flipped through the notebook, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression became more and more serious, and he cried out in alarm. This is big news. Brother Ling. While Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still flipping through the notebook, Wang Ling had almost finished reading his mind at the same time. Then, the two of them sat on the sofa in the same position as they stared at the bottle of black potion, their chins cupped in contemplation. According to the records in the gray notebook, this black potion was a kind of special strengthening potion first developed by Immortal Castle. It was designed for cultivators who couldn't make any further progress in their realms. At the cost of a certain amount of their lifespan, their body functions would mutate, and they would be able to display formidable battle strength that their realm couldn't match. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was the contents of the second half of the notebook. The latter half contained all sorts of data on Immortal Castle's human drug experiments on students under the guise of an educational institution. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned deeply, his eyes flashing with resentment. Who would have thought that Immortal Castle would actually do such an insane thing behind the scenes? No matter what, they can't ruin the flowers of the motherland. Wang Ling also frowned. Remembering something, he directly spoke to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal telepathically. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately nodded. Brother Ling, don't worry, I'll bring back the ingredients for this medicine right away and personally deliver them to Immortal Toya. With his experience, it shouldn't be a problem for him to detect the composition of the drug. After saying this, Wang Ling saw the man sigh deeply. In this day and age, those who have money rely on equipment, and those who don't have money rely on mutations. I didn't expect this saying to be true. In that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal truly felt the sorrow behind this mutated enhancer. When all was said and done, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that this was the same as that group of cultivators who had once bitterly clung to their orthodoxy and tried their best to reach the sky in a single bound. For the sake of cultivation, he could defy the will of the heavens and do anything. For the sake of his realm, he racked his brains and tried to take a shortcut. However, since ancient times in the cultivation world, the strong cultivators who stood out in front of the world and were worshipped by the people all relied on their own cultivation, accumulated bit by bit, and walked step by step. Yes, there were no shortcuts to cultivation in the first place. There are no shortcuts on the path of cultivation, so why are there so many people who can't figure it out? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt very tired in his heart. All these years, he had been promoting the values of cultivation on the forum, but it had all gone to waste. After obtaining the lead on the brocade pouch, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal left the Wong family's small villa gloomily. Before he left, he didn't forget to tell Wong Ling to personally deliver the broccoli he had planted to Grandfather Wong. Wong Ling didn't know what on earth this man would do after that. Mo Immortal Castle wasn't easy to deal with. If it had just been a small, ordinary organization, given this great death-courting senior's personality, he would have long since gone berserk in anger. He would definitely have directly charged into Mo Immortal Castle and turned it upside down to fully display his bursting sense of justice, right? But looking at the current situation, there clearly wasn't enough reason for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to do so. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still didn't have any proof that Mo Immortal Castle was conducting human experiments on its students. It was useless to just rely on some notes. There were some things that had to be seen to be believed. After leaving the Wong family's small villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal called Little Black again. "Hello, Little Black. That's right, I need to trouble you again. I have a few students' addresses. I hope you can help me check them out. Oh, by the way, how's the restoration of the laboratory going?" On the other end of the line, Little Black was clearly already used to being bossed around like this. It's not bad, except for the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong cannon, everything else has basically been repaired. That. Brother Lay, last time you told me that you would help me find the bastard who destroyed the laboratory. Do you have a plan for this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded solemnly. Don't worry, I'll remember it. Once you've repaired the cannon, I'll directly look for Ling Jinren and use my great spiritual senses to track down that bastard. Then the two of us will carry the cannon and blow up that bastard's house. Little Black, wouldn't that be a little too violent? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, what else is there to say when dealing with this kind of bastard? Let me tell you, Little Black, you're my brother. My brother's house was smashed up, I can't just sit back and do nothing. When I find that person's address, I'll be the first to carry the cannon and blow it up. Leave this matter to me. Little Black, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. I'll have to trouble you to help me find the addresses of those students as soon as possible. Little Black, what kind of information do you have? The more information there is, the faster I'll be able to find them. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned at this question, because the information provided in the notebook was really limited. It only recorded the student's age, height, weight and other physical data, as well as the changes after they had taken the mutation potion. There was really very little other information. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, that's a little. Little Black's heart thumped. How much? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal answered truthfully, height, weight, age, 3D, as well as the length and thickness of the Tower of Babel. Oh, that's right, there's also a medical record of a circumcision. Little Black, suddenly, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had a bold idea. Maybe we can start with the andrology hospital. Maybe that'll give us some clues. Let's see if they've gone for a circumcision or something, and then use the medical records. Won't we be able to find the addresses? Chapter 139. It could only be said that Xiao He was indeed Xiao He. As a world-class outstanding programmer, it quickly found the whereabouts of a few students in the notebook. There were 3 students in total, and they were currently being treated in isolation at Songhai City's Second Cultivation People's Hospital. The cost of treatment in isolation was extremely high. In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, Mo Immortal Castle covered all the medical expenses during this period, and also gave the victims' families a token amount of money to keep their mouths shut. However, this could not conceal the harm of human experimentation to society. The isolation treatment room was located in a separate area of the secondary hospital. Without the hospital's procedures and relevant permits, even family members could not enter. But Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had his own special technique for visiting patients. That was because when Little Black was investigating Second Cultivation People's Hospital, he happened to discover that the director of this independent ward was actually Immortal Toya's disciple, Li Miaojin. May 30th, Sunday of the 5th week of school. The temperature was a little low today. It was fine for cultivators, but ordinary people had to at least change from short sleeves to long sleeves, otherwise they would definitely get sick from the unique cold air lingering in Songhai City. The temperature in the weather forecast fluctuated up and down, indicating that Songhai City had officially entered epilepsy mode in the next month. Sometimes it was as hot as deep summer, and sometimes it was as cold as winter. The temperature fluctuated. However, the vast majority of people who had lived in Songhai City for a long time were already used to this bit of difference in temperature. Because of Immortal Toya's instructions, Director Li was already standing guard at the entrance of Second Hospital's independent ward, waiting for Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to come over. They had arranged to meet at 8:00 in the morning. Director Li was wearing a white coat and had a hospital identification card around his neck. On the inside, he was wearing a thick vest. The cold air from the frozen sea was at its strongest between 8 and 9 in the morning. Director Li stood at the door and rubbed his hands. He looked up at the sky and rolled his eyes. How many times has it been since we failed to enter the summer? Just as he was lamenting in his heart, 2 figures appeared at the independent ward in the distance. It was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling. He had originally planned to take advantage of the old man's trip this morning to reinforce his little tricycle. Unexpectedly, early in the morning, a man dressed in white appeared at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa with a sinister smile on his face. Lei Muren wanted Wang Ling to go to the hospital with him. As a prerequisite, he would ask an acquaintance to help Wang Ling reinforce the tricycle. After careful consideration, Wang Ling concluded that he wasn't losing out on this deal. Firstly, he could save some money. Secondly, he could avoid contact with outsiders. These days, finding a strengthening shop was like going to a barbershop. As soon as he entered the shop, a bunch of strange directors and chief executives would come out and start promoting and applying for membership cards. Wang Ling had always been disgusted. Thus, after thinking it over, Wang Ling was forcibly dragged over by Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Director Li's expression was a little strange when he saw Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal personally riding the tricycle with a young boy sitting behind it. Before the tricycle could come close, Director Li immediately went forward and bowed to Lei Muren. "Hello, Senior Lei, my Shifu has already told me about the situation." Then he turned to Wang Ling. "May I know who this is?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought seriously for a bit, then patted Wang Ling on the shoulder and replied, "This is our cultivation forum's most powerful rake, Ling Jinren." "Wang Ling, this is the legendary Ling Jinren." Director Li was shocked and hurriedly bowed to Wang Ling. "I've long heard of Ling Jinren's name from my Shifu, but I didn't expect him to be so young." There was no doubt in his words. After all, cultivators nowadays had too many ways to maintain their youthful looks. However, Wang Ling had maintained his youthful looks so well. Director Li had to admit that this was indeed the first time he had seen someone like this. Wang Ling nodded at the hospital director as a form of greeting. In contrast, Director Li looked a little flattered. Leading the two of them to the entrance of the independent zone, Director Lee stood in front of the door and greeted the security captain. "These two are my friends." The security captain stuck his head out of the security room for a look, and saw a man on a tricycle outside the door with a boy sitting on it. But the captain didn't think much of it, and directly opened the gate. Actually, Director Lee was taking a risk by bringing Wang Ling and Wang Ling in, because the hospital's higher-ups had already instructed that no one was to be allowed in unless they were a patient's immediate family member or relevant medical staff. But the hospital was this kind of place. As long as you had connections, you would naturally be able to get in. When all was said and done, this was a society of connections. "Is there a place to park?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked the security captain as they entered the door. The security captain's face was full of black question marks. "You're riding AF *** King tricycle." But because Director Lee was here, it wasn't appropriate for the security captain to say anything, and he pointed ahead. "Turn left 100 meters ahead, there's a parking lot." "Thank you." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal cupped his fists in a salute, then rode the tricycle straight into the parking lot with a drift. Finally, he looked around and stopped in the middle of a Maybach and a Maserati. Director Lee struggled to keep up behind him. He hadn't expected this tricycle to be so *** King fast. Wang Ling calmly got off the tricycle and straightened his clothes, his heart as still as an ancient well. After all, he had blessed this little three-wheeled motorcycle with his own hands. There were 2 inpatient buildings in the independent area of Second Hospital. Director Lee led the two of them to the base of one of the buildings, which had a very imposing fountain at the entrance. Wang Ling noticed that the color of this building was very special. It was actually black. Director Lee stood at the entrance with his hands clasped behind his back. "This is our Second Hospital's VIP isolation building, which is specially opened for critically ill patients. My eldest senior brother personally invested in it, and even the reinforced concrete is custom-made with spirit herb paste. Staying in this building can delay the patient's illness to the greatest extent. Even terminally ill patients will have enough time for treatment." As they entered the first floor, they were greeted by a dazzling lineup of pennants and certificates, such as Miracle Hands, City Advanced Units and so on. The secondary hospital specially used a wall to hang the certificates neatly on the wall. But the most obvious one was the portrait of an old man with a mustache hanging in the middle of the pile of certificates. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and he looked very amiable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, this is... At the mention of this person, Director Lee instantly looked a little excited. "This is my eldest senior brother, Li Shizhen. Wang Ling, this is the man who built this building and brought hope to countless patients." Director Lee excitedly pointed to a horizontal board at the back of the door, which Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hadn't noticed when they had entered. "This horizontal board was personally inscribed by my eldest senior brother. It's the name of this building." Wang Ling turned his head to look. Immediately, 4 huge golden words appeared in front of his eyes. Night Shift Hospital. Chapter 140. Second Hospital had 30 floors in total, and treated all kinds of strange patients. When they arrived at the elevator on the first floor, they happened to see a young nurse pushing a trolley out of the large elevator. When she saw Director Lee, the nurse hurriedly bowed her head and said, "Good morning, Director Lee." Director Lee had a good memory. She could remember most of the nurses who worked in this building by name, and could even compare the patients they were taking care of. "Little Lu, how's the patient today?" asked Director Lee. The patient Nurse Lu was in charge of was very special. When it came to her patient, the young nurse furrowed her willowy eyebrows and looked like she had a headache. As usual, this patient keeps spouting nonsense. He insists that he's a transmigrator. He also lies about having a superpower. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, what superpower? Let me show you. After saying that, Nurse Lu immediately jumped left and right and roared, "Whoosh!" Director Lee, After this shameful performance, Nurse Lu quickly regained her composure and sighed deeply. That patient keeps saying that he can teleport. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Wang Ling, as you can see, there are a lot of strange patients here. Huagua Water Curtain Group has invested a lot in the establishment of a research bureau for hard-to-treat diseases over the years, but unfortunately, we haven't been able to find an effective solution for these diseases. Director Li sighed. Following Director Li into the elevator, Director Li pressed the button for the 18th floor. Our building distributes wards according to the difficulty of the patient's treatment. The more difficult the illness is, the higher the floor they are arranged to live on. How are the 3 children? Grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart couldn't help trembling when he saw the number 18 floor. This was already the 18th floor. What kind of lunatic was living on the 30th floor? Information on the conditions of the patients in the independent zone was basically confidential. However, Director Li was still able to learn a thing or two based on his connections. As the elevator rose, Director Li frowned the whole time. As far as I know, 2 of these 3 children's conditions are basically under control. But they're only under control. They could flare up again at any time. The remaining child's condition is worse. Did the hospital find out what the mutation potion was made of? Asked Grenade-throwing senior immortal. They signed a confidentiality agreement with the family and gave them a sizable amount of compensation. They didn't even provide the ingredients of the potion. They completely handed it over to our hospital to treat it. Director Li shook his head. According to the current treatment results, the effect of the potion is no longer just affecting their cell structure. It seems to be a little mentally as well. You'll see when you get to the ward. 10 seconds later, the elevator reached the corresponding floor. Chief Li led the 2 of them through a long corridor and arrived at the innermost ward. The ward was very big. There were 3 beds in total, and they were all separated by glass. Wang Ling immediately saw 3 teenagers of his age. One was sitting on the bed and clapping his hands non-stop, one was lying as straight as a pole on the bed, and the last one was directly lying on the ground, in the embrace of Mother Earth. Wang Ling felt that he had broadened his horizons. There was a saying that mental patients had a wide range of thinking, and this wasn't false at all. He was stunned to realize that his mind-reading ability was completely useless on these 3 people, just like the old man when he was suffering from Alzheimer's. Director Li pointed to the first patient who was clapping. Patient number 1, after taking the mutation potion, feels that he can summon the heavenly flame. Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked doubtfully, then why is he clapping? Director Li, he's imitating the angry Buddha fire lotus. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing senior immortal, don't underestimate him. His current situation is already under control, and he's just clapping. Every time he clapped before, he would yell out, angry Buddha fire lotus. So, we defined his condition as acute Chinibu syndrome. Wang Ling, Director Li pointed to the second patient. Patient number 2, after taking the mutation potion, the powerful side effects caused him to completely lose control. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, like a vegetable. Director Li nodded. He can be considered a conscious vegetable. He can eat, but the food has to be put into his mouth. At the worst, he can't even be bothered to chew. So after that, we switched to fluid transfusions to maintain his body's nutrients. We defined his condition as chronic Guyu paralysis salted fish syndrome. Wang Ling, after that, Director Li pointed to the last patient. Patient number 3 should be the only one of the 3 who successfully mutated. But his ability is very weak. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, then why is he lying on the ground? Director Li's expression was calm. He's imitating Spider-Man. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Not long after Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing senior immortal followed Director Li into the night duty building, the window of a Maybach in the parking lot slowly rolled down, and the person sitting in the driver's seat was Song Qingshu's tall subordinate. He had watched helplessly as Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal entered the building, and had immediately called Song Qingshu to report the situation. Lord Director, you guessed right. As expected, this incident has attracted attention. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. Sure enough, he had been right to send people to keep an eye on them. The tall man in a suit asked, then what should we do now? The Lord has specifically instructed us not to let outsiders know about the potion. After Third Saint betrayed us, the Lord has always been worried that this person would do us harm. Who would have thought that he would actually bring trouble to our doorsteps so quickly? Song Qingshu said unhurriedly, there are only two paths in front of us now, either we get rid of those 3 students, or we get rid of these visitors who know about this. The man in a suit was clearly dazed. Lord Director. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but it doesn't seem possible to get rid of these 2 people who know about this. Although we lost a lot of our manpower last time, there are still 7 of the 10 saints left. Is there anything that 7 soul formation cultivators can't handle? There are only 2 people on the other side, right? The man in a suit, but of these 2 people, one of them is that great death-courting senior. Song Qingshu wanted to swear a little. Motherf **** cur. How could it be him again? Forcing himself to calm down, Song Qingshu took a deep breath. Then, who is the other person? The man in a suit answered truthfully, it's a youngster, he's been with this great death-courting senior the whole time. They drove here. But this great death-courting senior seems to respect him very much. The youngster who had driven here with grenade-throwing senior immortal. After losing 2 generals, Great Saint and Second Saint, in a row the last time, Song Qingshu was already traumatized by the word youngster. Could it be the one in grenade-throwing senior immortal's villa? As he pondered this, Song Qingshu's hands were already shaking uncontrollably. Chapter 141. Director Lee entrusted the nurse in charge of this floor with detailed information on the 3 students. All 3 of them were students from Foundation Establishment high schools. Coincidentally, they were all from Peiyuan District. One was from Building Materials High School, one was from God Vision High School, and the last one was from number 59 High School. Wang Ling's eyelids couldn't help twitching as he looked at the information. After all, number 59 High School had left him with a lot of unforgettable memories back then. Xie Hui. Looking at the information, Wang Ling couldn't match the name to the person's face. He raised his eyes and began to carefully size up the teenager lying on the floor learning how to spit silk. The more he looked, the more he felt that this guy looked a little familiar. In a fraction of a second, through the memory retrieval effect of the great memory spell, Wang Ling finally recalled the identity of the Spider-Man teenager. This person was that delinquent he boofing sidekick, the killer underling. The reason why Wang Ling hadn't recognized him at first glance was that the other party had shaved off his colorful punk-ass hairstyle. Now he was a bona fide bald man. Looking at Xie Hui now, Wang Ling sighed deeply in his heart. Sometimes, going bald really wouldn't make you stronger. Even if you ran and did push-ups every day and didn't have air conditioning in the summer, it was no use. Brother Ling, do you know this teenager? Grenade-throwing senior immortal felt that Wang Ling's expression when he saw this Xie Hui was a little different. Wang Ling's micro-expressions were actually very easy to distinguish because he usually had a poker face, and the slightest ripple could be seen. After serious consideration, Wang Ling nodded non-committally. Wang Ling didn't feel emotionally attached to number 59 high school, nor did he have any friendship with it. But no matter what, he couldn't deny that those were places where he had left his memories. He stared at Xie Hui lying on the floor and frowned slightly. Then he shook his finger, and the 3 teenagers in the ward actually all fell asleep. Xie Hui, who had been crazily spitting silk like Spider-Man on the floor earlier, was now lying paralyzed on the floor, snoring away. After that, Wang Ling used the gravitation spell to get Xie Hui into bed, and only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. This was a tribulation the three of them had to go through. No matter what the outcome was, Wang Ling couldn't interfere. That was all he could do. Recklessly interfering with heavenly Tao would result in divine retribution. Wang Ling felt very tired. He was just a 16-year-old high school student. He actually quieted down. Director Li was startled. He knew this Ling Jinren had used it. Brother Ling's hibernation spell can make the victim sleep for 7 days and 7 nights. Even if the sky falls down, they won't wake up. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very familiar with this move, because he had seen Wang Ling use it a few years ago when he had first met him. But at that time, he hadn't been able to cast spells precisely, and with a wave of his hand, a large number of creatures would fall asleep. At that time, Wang had been of the Ling, and had been, and had been, and had. After all, there were many patients in the hospital, and a large portion of them couldn't sleep because of the pain. If it was an ordinary person, it would be fine. A sleeping pill or a sedative would solve the problem. However, most of them had with ordinary people they had with Ling had and were resistant to drugs. If I can learn this hibernation spell, my mom won't have to worry about my studies anymore. But Director Li was well aware that he was just dreaming. He might never be able to learn such a great spell in his lifetime. Thus, after seeing Wang Ling cast the spell, Director Li's eyes lit up, and his reverence for this Ling Jinren instantly surged like an unstoppable river. Just as Director Li was sighing with emotion, he received a text message. It was from his Shifu, Immortal Toya. After reading the message, Director Li couldn't help frowning. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, what's the matter? Director Li's expression was very worried. Shifu said that the material in the drug is very special. It's more troublesome than he thought, and he won't be able to detect it for a while. As he spoke, Immortal Toya sent him a picture of a laboratory test report. Even Brother Toya is stumped. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal instantly felt that this was a little strange. Nowadays, apart from the pharmacists board employed by Huaguo Water Curtain Group and the alchemists from the Shao clan, the only people who could rival Immortal Toya in terms of pharmaceutical skills were the alchemists who were employed by Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Through this incident, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal discovered a brand new clue. It was worth investigating whether anyone behind Huaguo Water Curtain Group and the Shao clan was colluding with Mo Immortal Castle. We can only wait for Shifu's next message. But with this preliminary test report, we can still analyze some of the mutated potion's pharmacological properties. Speaking up to this point, Director Li suddenly thought of something and said, I wonder if Ling Jinren can also use the hibernation spell on the patient on the 30th floor. What illness does he have? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little curious about the psychopath on the 30th floor. It's severe delusions and schizophrenia, and he's naturally very resistant to drugs. We've used all sorts of treatment methods, but the effects are minimal. Director Li sighed. The main point is that this patient insists that he's a descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, did you see the fountain downstairs on our way here? This is the most troublesome part. Speaking up to this point, Director Li felt like his head was about to explode. That patient insists that he knows the Kuanping spell, and insists on jumping into the fountain from the 30th floor. Why? Director Li, he thinks that fountain is a seawall for big fish. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, at the same time, the man in a suit and Song Qingshu were still talking downstairs at the hospital. Song Qingshu had racked his brains for a long time in the last few minutes, and had made a difficult decision. How about this, you find someone, or you can smash the car they drove here first. No matter what the situation is now, no matter how much information they've gathered, we have to disrupt their plans first. If the car is smashed, at worst we'll just have to pay for it. How much is a car worth? Staring at Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling's car, the man in a suit silently wiped at his sweat. Lord Director, Are you sure you want to do this? Song Qingshu curled his lip. If I tell you to smash it, then smash it. What's with all this nonsense? It's not like you're paying for it. By the way, I want to know, what kind of car does this great death-courting senior drive? A Guanhai Limited Edition. Chuan Jiangwo Limited Edition. None of those. Cultivators rarely drove, and most chose to fly on their swords. However, it wasn't strange for them to own a car. That was because on many occasions, driving would make you look more impressive. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the cars bought by high-level cultivators were very expensive. Song Qingshu was really a little curious now. Then what kind of car do they drive? The man in a suit answered truthfully, tricycle. Chapter 142. In the end, the tall man in a suit obeyed Song Qingshu's instructions and got out of the car. However, he now had a hammer in his hand. At the same time, he held a functional armor-penetrating talisman in his other hand. Although he didn't know why a cultivation bigwig at Great Death-courting seniors level would come to the hospital on a small tricycle, he felt that given his IQ, he couldn't understand Great Death-courting seniors' train of thought at all. Whether it was in terms of realm or way of thinking, they weren't on the same level. Three pure ones of heaven and earth, Tao is impermanent. The man in a suit walked up to the small tricycle that looked a little shabby, raised his sword fingers, and shouted softly before he quickly stuck the armor-penetrating talisman on the hammer. Ding! In an instant, the talisman's full power surged out, and the hammer instantly grew in size and was covered in a layer of dark gold. This was originally just an ordinary hammer, but after being enchanted and strengthened by the armor-penetrating talisman, it could display the power of a spirit weapon. The man in a suit held the hammer and sneered with satisfaction. With this hammer, this shabby little tricycle would probably be smashed to pieces. However, just as he was about to further destroy the tricycle, he unexpectedly heard a girl's voice in his ear. What do you want to do to me? Very quickly, a wave of horror surged into his heart. Because he realized that the voice seemed to be coming from the tricycle. What the hell? This shabby tricycle could actually talk. The man in a suit broke out in a cold sweat as he stared blankly at the small gray and black tricycle. The paint had already peeled off, and on a closer look, there was still rust on the handlebars. It looked completely unremarkable, but the man in a suit felt that he had made a mistake. He should have guessed earlier that a vehicle operated by Great Death-courting senior definitely wouldn't be an ordinary one. I advise you, don't have any delusions about me. At that moment, the girl's cute voice coming from the tricycle once again roused the man in a suit from his thoughts. This voice, didn't it sound too soft and cute? It was like the voice of a little Lolita. The man in a suit really couldn't imagine that this voice could match up with this shabby little tricycle. The point was that because it was so sweet and pleasant, it didn't seem lethal at all. Perhaps this was purely an invisible navigation system that Great Death-courting senior had created. Was it used to scare people? The man in the suit was guessing. At the same time, he fell into a deep dilemma. Should he smash it or not? After a period of careful consideration, the man in the suit narrowed his eyes and finally decided to raise the hammer. As a man, he had to be more decisive. Everything would be clear once the hammer smashed down. Bang! The reinforced hammer smashed into the front of the tricycle, producing a powerful muffled sound, but it only produced a string of sparks. The man in the suit was shocked to find that there was an invisible barrier around the tricycle. Instead, a counterforce sent him flying, and he crashed heavily into a black sedan behind him. The huge impact caused the car's anti-theft function to activate, and a long alarm sounded. Damn it, the man in the suit shook his dizzy head and got up after a while. This sudden backlash made his hand go numb, and he lost the opportunity to destroy the tricycle. I'm so cute, but you're still willing to lay your hands on me. You don't have a girlfriend, do you? The little tricycle's girlish voice came again. This time, the man in the suit shivered violently. What kind of monster was this? The alarm from the sedan behind him attracted the security guards who were patrolling the nearby area. The man in the suit climbed up with great effort and hurriedly got into his car. He endured the sharp pain in his head, stepped on the accelerator, and drove away from the scene at top speed. Now, the man in the suit couldn't care less. He didn't even have time to think about what the hell the tricycle was. He only felt that his head was hurting. He suspected that he had a concussion from the rebound just now. What a joke. He was a golden core stage cultivator. Getting a concussion from the rebound of a broken tricycle. No one would believe this, right? He stepped on the accelerator and directly drove to the hospital entrance. He didn't even pay the parking fee. With a bang, he directly broke through the guardrail and rushed out. The security captain was frightened by this sudden scene. He was so angry that he slammed the table and jumped up. It was said that the richer one was, the more stingy they were. This was indeed true. This bastard was driving a Maybach, but he didn't even pay the parking fee. However, what made the security captain even more frightened was that just as he watched the Maybach speeding out of the hospital area, behind the Maybach, a tricycle quickly followed at the speed of a meteor. It was F*King driverless. On Baohua Road in front of the second hospital, the man in the suit quickly drove to the highway. After a few minutes of calming down, he felt that his headache had eased a lot. However, it was obvious that the man in the suit didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. He cast a sidelong glance at the rearview mirror. The man in the suit's face instantly became extremely pale. F***. That tricycle actually caught up by itself. Was this car made in Cybertron? Vroom. The sound of the motor roared, and the man in the suit began to accelerate. However, the tricycle behind him was still hot on his heels. Just like that, a Maybach and a tricycle performed a fast and furious performance on the highway. The man in the suit found that whenever he accelerated, the tricycle would also accelerate. His Maybach's speed was close to saturation, a full 300 kilometers per hour. The scariest thing was that the speed of the tricycle was obviously not limited to this, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Not far away, a police car was parked. A traffic police captain leaned comfortably against the side of the police car and took out the newly issued speed detector from his pocket. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two sounds, and two streaks of light almost instantly flew past him. Boom! The traffic police captain was shocked to find that the speed detector in his hand had actually exploded. F***. Racing so early in the morning. Do you want to die? The traffic police captain roared angrily at the two streaks of light, and quickly took out his walkie-talkie. Attention all units. There are two cars racing on the Huan Highway. They have exceeded the maximum speed limit. Please stop them in time. Soon, a reply came from the other end of the walkie-talkie. Reporting, Captain. These two people are too fast, we can't stop them. Did you see the car type clearly? Inform the Municipal Bureau to get the surveillance cameras to check the license plate. The first is a Maybach, the other. At this point, several traffic police officers on the other end of the walkie-talkie exclaimed, F***. Captain, it's a tricycle. A tricycle is chasing the Maybach. Reporting, Captain. The tricycle has overtaken the car. Chapter 143. After learning about the situation at Second Hospital, they went downstairs accompanied by Director Lee. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned deeply. It seemed that he hadn't relaxed since entering the hospital building. Director Lee, I'll have to trouble you to take good care of these three children. Lei Murin, will definitely get to the bottom of this matter. Senior Immortal, don't worry. Even if you don't say so, I'll do my best. This bunch of profiteers who make these 3 unmarketable products are really hateful. Director Lee nodded. He knew that it wouldn't be easy to investigate this matter. Because the other party had a lot of means to make money, they had immediately gone through private procedures to give each family a sum of money that they couldn't refuse as compensation. But whether it was Director Lee or grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, both felt that this compensation wasn't a reason to prevent the truth from being revealed. Students who were still in the foundation establishment stage, these were the future hopes of the country, but now they were being used as lab rats for human experiments. Although on the surface it seemed that there were only 3 students who had problems, there was still a lot of darkness behind the scenes. It was really frightening to think about it. When they reached the entrance of the hospital, Director Lee stood at the door and bowed. But please be careful, Senior. The force behind this group is very powerful. Mei Shifu knows that you've been investigating this independently, and is actually very worried. If you need help, you can say so in the group. If everyone works together, there won't be any problems. Brother To said this? Asked grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Yes. These are Mei Shifu's exact words. Replied Director Lee. Tell Brother to rest assured. If I really can't solve this problem, I'll definitely ask for help. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. Actually, I'm very thick-skinned. Good luck, Senior. Director Lee nodded, then bowed at the door. I still have some matters to attend to in the building, so I won't be seeing you out. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. Go ahead, Director Lee. If there's any progress on the drug test, contact me at any time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed the whole time as he left the hospital. After this investigation, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that perhaps these children hadn't intended to drink the potion, and had most likely been duped. Nowadays, it was too easy for those black-hearted educational institutions that devoured human flesh and blood to sell their so-called brain-nourishing products during the tutoring process. The unfortunate and pitiful ones were ultimately these ignorant and young children. Initially, Wang Ling had wanted to hand this matter over to the forum owner in front of him to handle, but it was very obvious that this forum owner was already badly battered by the mess that had followed. Ever since he had met grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Wang Ling had never seen a man look so dejected. Mo Immortal Castle was too mysterious and liked stirring up trouble too much. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't rely on his chivalrous spirit to solve problems like he usually did. Wang Ling felt that Mo Immortal Castle's problem was already pressing. And the most important factor was that this organization had already affected his comfortable life, both openly and secretly. When he left the hospital building and returned to the parking lot, he noticed signs of a fight. After the talisman was used, it would leave behind a special smell that other people couldn't smell, but Wang Ling's sense of smell was very sensitive. His pupils opened, and the scene in front of him began to flow backward. The Heavenly Eye had a flashback ability that allowed him to see what had happened half an hour ago. However, it was only limited to what had happened half an hour ago. Wang Ling transmitted the scene into grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mind, and the man was taken aback. What the hell? Brother Ling, your little tricycle can talk. That didn't seem to be the point. The point was, who was this man in a suit driving the Maybach? Why the hell did he smash the tricycle with a hammer? In the end, it had even bounced off. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal carefully observed the flashback image transmitted by Wang Ling, and the expression on his face began to change. Finally, his eyes instantly widened as he remembered. He had seen this man in a suit before. This was the person from Mo Immortal Castle. The supervisor's subordinate. We're being watched. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal clenched his fists angrily. This bunch of idiots were really all-pervasive, huh? Were they eels? Not far away, the security captain saw the two of them arrive, and hurriedly walked over and pointed to the little tricycle. "Gentlemen, this is your tricycle, right? While you were gone just now, this tricycle actually chased after a Maybach. I don't know what happened, but it came back on its own just now." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. After hearing the security captain's words, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he was still too naive. He had thought that this little tricycle was just an ordinary means of transportation. Brother Ling hadn't enlightened this thing, had it? "Congratulations, you're right," the security captain said helplessly. "Even if you're Director Lee's friends, this tricycle and the absconding Maybach did indeed affect the other cars in our parking lot. Gentlemen, how should we deal with this?" At that moment, a burly man in sunglasses leaned over. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already seen the Heavenly Eye flashback image, and immediately knew that this was the owner of the car that the man in his suit had crashed into after being sent flying. "Were you two the ones who damaged my car?" asked the man in sunglasses. "You can't say that. It was that Maybach guy who damaged your car. How can you blame us?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal glanced at the black supercar the man was driving. It was a limited edition Bugatti. The headlights had been smashed by that F*King idiot from Mo Immortal Castle. Repairing these two headlights would cost at least 100,000 yuan. How many crispy noodle snack packets could he buy with that? Wang Ling felt that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was actually very similar to him in one way. They were both very thrifty. When they walked the streets, they would never spend money that they shouldn't. "I don't care, that Maybach guy has already escaped, and I can't catch up to him. But you're also indirectly responsible." The man with the sunglasses crossed his arms and his biceps bulged out, causing the white shirt he was wearing to stretch out. "Actually, I'm not the owner, I'm just the driver. Do you know who the owner of this car is? If I say it, you'll be scared to death." "Oh. Scared to death." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought it was funny. "Do you know Secretary Son of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools? One of the 10 meritorious figures who founded the nation back then." The man in sunglasses sneered slightly. "My master is a legend at number 60 high school, and has already reached the golden core stage at such a young age." Hearing this, Wang Ling already had a bad feeling. He's the person who recently relied on his keen insight to prevent 2 assassination attempts by Shadowstream. Now he's Secretary Sun's favorite, the youngest director of the general administration of 100 schools in history, Audiobook. "Let me ask you, are you afraid?" Chapter 144. Audiobook hadn't expected to run into Wang Ling here at all. After receiving a call from his subordinate, he had immediately come down. "Mr. Zhua, these 2 people broke your car and refused to pay for it no matter what. Don't you think it's too much? Do you want me to call a lawyer?" The man in sunglasses wanted to ask if he should call a lawyer, but before he could say anything, he noticed that Audiobook's gaze was already fiercely on him. There was something wrong with the plot. The sunglasses man broke out in cold sweat. "Do you know who this is?" Audiobook pointed at Wang Ling. "He's my Shifu." "So what if he was hit by his master?" "That was just master's caress." Sunglasses man, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Wang Ling, his face full of excitement, Audiobook stepped forward and grasped Wang Ling's hand. "Shifu, your disciple has been looking forward to meeting you day and night, and I finally get to see you." Wang Ling knew that he had been completely blackmailed by Audiobook. There were a lot of old ladies who blackmailed each other these days, and blackmailing a Shifu was indeed quite fresh and refined. Not long ago, Wang Ling had heard a short story about a little girl who had run into an old lady who had fallen on her way to school. The little girl had kindly helped the old lady up, but the old lady had insisted that the little girl pay money. At that moment, the little girl had calmly stood up and slapped the old lady, saying, "I'm underage anyway." Then, he left, At that moment, Wang Ling actually really wanted to imitate what the little girl was doing. Yup, he's only 16 years old. In theory, he's still a minor. But after this slap, he felt that this guy would definitely die on the spot, right? I've long heard of Mr. Zhua's great name, but I didn't expect you to actually be Brother Ling's disciple. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cupped his fists in a salute in an attempt to diffuse the awkwardness. This senior is, I am Lei Muren, Taoist name Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cupped his fists in salute. So senior is Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Zhuo was instantly excited. It turned out that the great death-courting senior that everyone in the cultivation world was talking about was him. If it wasn't for the current occasion, Zhuo felt that he would definitely kneel down and worship this big shot. I've long heard of your great name. I didn't expect to meet you here today. Grenade-throwing senior immortal rubbed his head a little embarrassedly. Am I that famous? Where did Mr. Zhua hear this news? Zhuo thought for a bit and immediately replied, Cultivation Story Club, bosom friend for 500 years. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Grenade-throwing senior immortal, why is Mr. Zhua here? Speaking up to this point, Zhuo looked around cautiously, then pointed at Hospital Block No. 2 next to the night duty hospital and said in a very low voice, I'm here today to visit an old leader on behalf of our general administration of 100 schools. This is old Chief Chen of the former Cultivation Police Department. Then, he pointed at his head and shook his head. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, is there something wrong with his head? Zhuo and the man in sunglasses, Zhuo. It's dementia. Wang Ling raised his eyelids slightly. Not long ago, the old man's dementia had gotten better with great difficulty. He didn't expect to meet one today. As it turned out, mental disorders were a tricky problem for both cultivators and ordinary people. As it turned out, this thing really couldn't be cured with medicine. Grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at Hospital Block No. 2 and frowned deeply. I've dealt with this old Chief Chen before. 2 years ago, in order to safeguard the welfare of the working people at the bottom of Wind Factory, he rushed into the factory alone and overturned more than 10 excavators. Wang Ling, I've always felt that old Chief Chen's temperament is actually quite similar to mine. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, I'll go ask Brother Toya later and see if he has any special treatment methods. Hearing this, Zhuo immediately bowed. On behalf of old Chief Chen, I thank Senior Immortal for your help. It's no big deal, it's just a small problem. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled slightly. Today, Zhuo felt that his luck was really off the charts. He was actually able to meet 2 seniors whom he had admired for a long time at the same time. However, Zhuo also realized that when these 2 people were really standing in front of him, he didn't even have the courage to ask for their WeChat. He had just met them, but they were already clamoring to add each other's WeChat. What if the seniors thought this was a form of disrespect and left a bad impression? What if the seniors rejected him? How embarrassing would that be? What if the seniors didn't use WeChat? Wouldn't that be too rash? What if? Zhuo struggled for a long time in his heart. At that moment, police sirens screeched outside the hospital, and 4 police cars drove into the parking lot one after another, instantly surrounding Wang Ling and the others. The security captain knew Zhuo's identity, so he took advantage of a gap to explain the current situation to Zhuo. It was still about the small tricycle chasing after the Maybach. The security captain had heard that the tricycle had overtaken the Maybach on the highway, which was a serious violation of the speed limit. Then the traffic police had checked the route on surveillance cameras and chased them here. It looks like they're here to make trouble for us, Brother Ling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's eyes were as calm as still water. It was just a few police officers, and they couldn't scare him at all. Although he wasn't afraid, the situation was indeed very troublesome. In a law-based cultivation society, realm didn't mean everything. Even if a soul formation cultivator broke traffic rules and the law, whether it was an immortal sword or a car, they still had to be detained. Those who had to go to jail still had to go to jail. Grenade throwing was very famous in the online cultivation circle, but the police wouldn't buy it. Wang Ling was also very vexed. The small tricycle, sheep, had always had the temperament of a child, and her temper was a little unstable. Sometimes, when she was naughty, she couldn't be controlled at all. Looking at this group of traffic police whizzing over, Wang Ling was instantly a little vexed. Next to him, Audjua's eyes lit up. He knew that this was his chance to shine. Are Shifu and Senior worried about this? Audjua asked. Grenade throwing Senior immortal, can you handle it? Audjua gave him a thumbs up. It's just a bunch of police uncles. It's just a small problem. Senior, watch me. As soon as he said this, the traffic police captain who had been on the highway earlier had already gotten out of the police car in a threatening manner and slammed the car doors shut with a paw. With several police officers behind him, he quickly found the tricycle suspected of speeding, and his gaze swept over the people around them. Whose car is this? Under Audjua's intense gaze, the man in sunglasses didn't dare speak at all. It's mine. Then, in the next moment, Audjua puffed out his chest and stepped forward. At that moment, both Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could feel the dazzling holy light radiating from Audjua's back. Not only could he bear the white pot, he could also bear the black pot. Chapter 145. Of course, Audjua would be able to escape unscathed. Songhai City's general administration of 100 schools was personally promoted by Secretary Sun Dakong. Anyone in his position would have to think twice about it. The traffic police captain didn't expect to bump into such a big shot here. He was so shocked that he was drenched in cold sweat. Even his speech was a little incoherent. His previous aggressive attitude was like a punctured balloon, deflating in an instant. Do you know me? Audjua stared at the traffic police captain with a fake smile. Hearing Audjua's question, the captain seemed to wake up from a dream. I never thought that Director Zhuo would be here. The police officers behind him didn't dare speak. Then this tricycle? Asked Audjua. The traffic police captain immediately shook his head sensibly. Don't worry, Director Zhuo. Since this tricycle belongs to Director Zhuo, of course we won't deduct any points. Then my tricycle violated traffic regulations. Do I have to deduct points? Audjua asked again. The traffic police captain sweated. There's no one driving the tricycle, so it's not Director Zhuo's fault. Please don't worry, then, fine. Audjua asked again. The traffic police captain immediately shook his head like a rattle. No points, and naturally no fine, Director Zhuo. Don't worry, nonsense, how would he dare? Watching on the side, Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal criticized the current cultivation bureaucracy in their hearts. Who knew that in the next moment, Audjua would press down on the captain's shoulder and look at the police number on the captain's right chest. PC 12138. Director Zhuo, what's wrong? Audjua looked at the traffic police captain righteously and shook his head. Comrade Captain, I think I need to give you a good scolding. As a traffic police captain, how can you bend the law for personal gain? I was just testing you just now. You've disappointed me. The captain and the police officers behind him all raised their heads with bewildered expressions. As an administrator and an enforcer of cultivation law, if you can't even pass this small test, how can you do great things in the future? Do you think your superior will trust you? Audjua stared at the captain and reprimanded him very seriously. The captain's forehead was already drenched in sweat. Then, he pointed at Hospital Block 2. Do you know which old leader I'm visiting today? This was the former head of the Cultivation Police Department, Old Master Chen Yenshi. Before he was admitted to the hospital, he was still wholeheartedly serving the people and fighting for the fairness and justice of the law. Old Chen saw everything that you guys did today. The traffic police captain and the police officers behind him stood ramrod straight as they received Audio's personal instruction, not even daring to speak. The traffic police captain's shoulders trembled as he listened, and he lowered his head. Director Zhua is right. I feel very ashamed, it's all my fault. Audrey nodded. So, deduct points when they should be deducted, and fine when they should be punished. Remember, you can't be afraid of him just because he's your leader, understand? The traffic police captain straightened his back and saluted Audrey. Very well, leader. Audrey nodded in satisfaction and finally added, deduct the points and punish the money. Leave the tricycle for me, and punish me less for the points and money. The police officer, after a moment of silence, the traffic police captain nodded weakly. Very well, leader. Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal took deep breaths as they watched this scene. It could only be said that Audrey was no longer that clueless Audrey from before. After being promoted to the position of director, Audrey had been able to come into contact with a lot more people, and the most obvious thing about him was that he was very slick and scheming. When Wang Ling returned home, Father Wang was upstairs working hard on behalf of his readers. Let Go of That Wet Nurse was coming to an end, and he had been wrapping up the last few days. For this reason, Father Wang had seriously reread all the chapters he had written before to confirm whether there were still any holes or suspense he had yet to fill in. For example, some of the great authors on some websites would leave a large part of the plot in the middle. They would never remember the holes that they had laid out for themselves. Then, at the end of the story, they would use a duel to end the story and take away the last villain. That would be the end of the story. The technical term for this method of writing was the bulldozer method of instantly filling in holes. To sum it up in 2 words, it was the legendary bad ending. Father Wang was a typical Virgo, and he wanted to ensure that the ending of his story was perfect. He absolutely wouldn't let the readers catch any loose ends. Wang Ling returned to the study and logged on to QQ, feeling bored to death. He noticed that the cultivation chat group seemed to be quite lively today. The main reason was that grenade-throwing senior immortal had exposed Wang Ling's taking in a disciple on his way back, so in an instant, the chat group, which had been dead silent for the last few days, instantly became much livelier. Administrator Tsai Lianjinren sent a surprised emoji. Ling Jinren has actually taken in a disciple? What does he look like? Is he strong? Don't they look talented, matey, and majestic? Grenade-throwing senior immortal quickly replied, he seems to only be at the golden core stage at the moment, but he's pretty good at doing things. Maybe that's why Ling Jinren took him in as a disciple? Also, his face is very white, and he's very popular. The group was dead silent for a few seconds. Bulang Blade Immortal immediately jumped out. F***K. So, being very white and popular is Ling Jinren's criteria for choosing a disciple? Tsai Lianjinren couldn't help ridiculing him. What's the use of being very white and popular nowadays? The key is to have freestyle. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Wang Ling, the group was chatting happily. At this time, 9 times in one night, suddenly sent a post to the group. Look at this post. I saw it in the Gossip World section of the Cultivation Forum. It mentions grenade-throwing senior immortal and Ling Jinren. Wang Ling stared at the link and was silent for a long time. He had a bad feeling about this. This was a post that had been posted half an hour ago. The ID of the poster was, Super High School Director. Just by looking at the name, Wang Ling already knew who this guy was. The subject of the post was, Today, I actually saw grenade-throwing senior immortal and the legendary Ling Jinren in person. They're 2 of my 4 favorite seniors in the forum. As their little fanboy, I'm really super excited. I've finally achieved 2 of my 4 greatest achievements in life. Someone asked, then dare I ask, Your Excellency, what are your 4 greatest achievements in life? That poster's answer was as follows: Saliengenren's Little Punch, 0-1, Grenade Throwing Senior Immortals Bazahii, 1-1, Immortal Toya's Black Pineapple, 0-1, the last one, Linggenren's Kiss, 1-1. Chapter 146. It was May 31st on Monday in the 6th week of school. The old man and Mother Wang were coming back from their trip today. Wang Ling had received news that they would be home at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. After not seeing her for a few days, Wang Ling really missed Mother Wang's nutritious breakfast, and wasn't used to not eating it for a few days. Of course, compared with Mother Wang's nutritious breakfast, Wang Ling actually missed the limited edition beef ramen-flavored crispy noodle snacks that the old man had brought him from south of the Heavenly River. When Wang Ling returned to school that morning, everyone in Grade 1, Class 3 focused their morning gossip on a street singer who had suddenly become popular on the internet yesterday. When Wang Ling heard this, he immediately knew that this street singer was definitely Tang Yuning. Based on the influence of Old Boys in the Other World alone, Wang Ling knew that Tang Yuning would definitely become a hit. But he hadn't expected it to happen so soon. It was said that gossip was contagious. From the quietness in the morning at the beginning of school to the habit of gossiping in Grade 1, Class 3, almost everyone in Grade 1, Class 3 had developed the habit of gossiping in the morning. Wang Ling felt that Master of Dopey was the one who had made the greatest contribution. It was all because of this guy. I heard that this subway bro has been a singer for a long time, and not long ago, he failed in an audition for a talent show. Who knew that he would suddenly become popular? Dopey Gua spread his hands and called Tang Yuning Subway Bro by the netizens. The reason why he was called Subway Bro was that Tang Yuning had sung Old Boys in the subway station, and had become popular after someone had filmed it and posted it online. In the video, Tang Yuning's hair wasn't combed, and his clothes and pants were street goods that could be bought for a few dozen yuan. Plus, that broken guitar. It made Tang Yuning look a little sloppy. But it was this unvarnished and unpackaged appearance that made Tang Yuning unwittingly feel a little more weathered when he sang Old Boys. In the video, it could be seen that as soon as Tang Yuning opened his mouth, many passers-by couldn't help stopping to listen. Everyone fell into an intoxicated state. In fact, apart from these, Tang Yuning's appearance was still very delicate. His slightly thin figure made most young people somewhat envious and yearned for it. Although this era didn't discriminate against fat people, people's aesthetic standards were still limited to bony beauty. As the girls in the class watched the video, they couldn't help but reveal a somewhat intoxicated expression on their faces. Tang Yuning was really too handsome. What kind of person was he? What kind of experiences did he have to be able to write such a song? Of course, he didn't really care about Tang Yuning. Because no one would have thought that for Wang Ling, this song was as valuable as 2 bowls of beef noodles, 33 yuan and 70 cents. Teacher Pan had handed out a stack of flyers for the Tao Talismans class in the morning. School teachers strictly forbade students from making up lessons in private, so the teachers in charge were afraid that it would affect the average grade of the class for students who couldn't keep up with the course progress. Therefore, the school's attitude was to encourage students to find private education institutions for tutoring. At least for number 60 high school, usually, there were small classes of 3 to 4 people, and medium classes of 8 to 10 people. Of course, the smaller the number, the more expensive it was. The main reason why number 60 high school was willing to hand out these flyers for private education institutions was because they were poor. Huagua Water Curtain Group subsidy was still going through the process, which took a long time for a large enterprise. So before the official subsidy for the construction of the school was distributed, Headmaster Chen could only work hard to transform the school in this way. How poor number 60 high school was had always been a meme passed down by the older generation of seniors. What had left the deepest impression on them were the palm trees at the entrance with withered yellow leaves, which looked shabby but just wouldn't die. Every time Wang Ling passed by these palm trees, he would always associate them with that lightning-struck tree which had been full of vitality in the great wilderness. There were strong people in an earthquake, strong pigs in a flood, and there were strong trees in number 60 high school. As a student of number 60 high school, Wang Ling was already used to the school's naughty nature. But when Wang Ling received this flyer for a private education institution, his pupils contracted slightly. Because the private education institution advertised in this flyer was none other than Mo Immortal Castle. Had they taken a fancy to number 60 high school and come here to sell fake medicine? Wang Ling stared at the flyer and was lost in deep thought. Today, there was a new patient on the 18th floor of secondary hospital's night shift building. The patient had been sent over from the emergency room yesterday. At that time, there hadn't been enough people on the night shift in the emergency room, and the leader of the health bureau had called all the chief surgeons who had been on their way home to come back halfway. Director Lee had only been summoned by the hospital leader at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after returning home. The main reason was that the patient hadn't been sent for treatment in time, and the operation hadn't progressed in time. By the time the patient had been sent to the emergency room, the doctors were already at their wits' end. He wasn't dead, but the nerves in his brain had been severely damaged, resulting in a serious mental disorder. The hospital leader couldn't withstand the pressure from the city bureau leader, and could only transfer the patient to Director Lee's independent ward. That very night, he called for an expert consultation to see if there was any special treatment. At the same time, Grade 1, Class 3 was broadcasting Mo Immortal Castle's advertisement, while Director Lee was presiding over an expert seminar in the hospital. There were 8 experts from the Department of Brain Psychiatry, which was practically the strongest lineup in the independent ward to treat hard-to-treat mental illnesses. Standing at the head of the long conference table, Director Lee sighed. "Before we start the meeting, can anyone explain how the patient's initial brain injury was caused?" An old expert with white hair and a beard quickly replied, "The initial diagnosis is chronic retrograde brain dysfunction syndrome, which is also known as the legendary concussion." "How was it caused?" Director Lee asked with a frown. Another expert replied, "The patient doesn't have a family member, but according to the patient's leader, before the accident, the patient was hit by a tricycle." "A tricycle?" Director Lee suddenly felt that this car seemed a little familiar. "Can you be more specific?" "According to the patient's description before he was conscious. I heard that after being hit by a tricycle, he drove his Maybach and was chased by a tricycle for 8 freeways. In the end, his symptoms flared up and he went into a short period of shock. He crashed through the guardrail of the freeway at a speed of 300 kilometers per hour, falling directly 50 meters from the ground and finally exploding. Chapter 147. Song Qing-shu had never expected that the subordinate he had sent to keep an eye on him would come back in such a state. After being hit by a tricycle truck, being chased for 8 whole blocks while suffering from a concussion, and finally falling off the highway due to intermittent brain shock. Song Qing-shu felt that the plot was basically, the Grim Reaper is coming. This tall man in a suit was called Fong Yen, and Xiao Fong had been working with Song Qing-shu for a long time. Therefore, after Song Qing-shu learned that Xiao Fong was injured, he immediately used his connections to arrange surgery for Xiao Fong as soon as possible. He directly skipped the tedious process of registering. Sometimes, saving time could really save a life. If he had waited for another registration time, Xiao Fong might really have died. But even so, Xiao Fong still missed the golden treatment time. After the expert meeting, Song Qing-shu stood at the door and waited for Director Lee to appear. Several old experts followed behind Director Lee, shaking their heads and frowning as they sighed. After the discussion in the meeting just now, they hadn't come up with an effective way to treat the man in the suit, Fong Yen. As soon as he saw Director Li, Song Qingshu immediately went up to him and held his hand tightly. "Hello, Director Li. Is there any new discussion?" Director Li shook his head regretfully. "Well, not at the moment. To be honest, Mr. Fong's mental disorder is more serious than we thought. He's infinitely close to a vegetable." Infinitely close to a vegetable, does that mean he hasn't completely reached the stage of a vegetable? Doesn't that mean he can still be saved? "Mr. Song, you've misunderstood." Director Li looked at his watch and then looked at Song Qingshu seriously. "What I mean is, Mr. Fong still needs an expert's diagnosis. Just a minute ago, the expert already confirmed it. Now, Mr. Fong is already a vegetable." "Song Qingshu, is there no other way? Acupuncture with golden needles. Medicinal bath treatment. Money isn't a problem." "Director Li, Mr. Song, you have to understand that the nerves in the brain are quite complicated. Perhaps cultivators can use some methods to speed up the recovery of internal organs and skin injuries. However, brain problems, especially involving nerves, are the same for cultivators and ordinary people. Once injured, it's very difficult to cure. Acupuncture with golden needles and medicinal bath treatment, these common folk remedies in cultivation novels, how can they work?" Song Qingshu, Director Li, once, the hospital sent a nascent soul stage patient with cerebral hemorrhage. Our hospital prepared to perform a craniotomy on him. The operation lasted for 8 hours, but in the end, the patient's skull wasn't even cut open. Song Qingshu, just like that, after the great sage, the second sage, and the defected third sage, Song Qingshu once again lost a trusted general who could fight. Although Xiao Fong was only an assistant, he had indeed helped Song Qingshu solve many of his problems. Most importantly, even if Song Qingshu wanted to take revenge, he felt powerless. Because that tricycle belonged to grenade-throwing senior immortal and that teenager, why? Why did it have to be these two? Song Qingshu felt that he really shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke him. Xiao Fong wouldn't have ended up like this if he hadn't directed this. After a busy morning in the secondary hospital, Song Qingshu returned to the office in the afternoon to find that he still had a lot of work to do. He received a text message on his watch. It was from the lady of the castle, who was the Lord's personal secretary and had been with him for many years. As long as it was something she didn't really want to manage, be it big or small, she would handle it. But it was worth mentioning that this lady of the castle was very mysterious. Even Song Qingshu, a veteran employee of Mo Immortal Castle for many years, had never seen her face. She was a mysterious woman. The only thing Song Qingshu knew about the lady of the castle was that she was very strong, far stronger than he was. Song Qingshu even felt that even the 10 saints might not be this lady's match. When Song Qingshu saw the text message from the lady of the castle, his mood was actually very complicated. Since Third Sage's defection, the lord of the castle had been very dissatisfied with his work. Previously, he would still communicate with the lord on the phone, but recently, he had left everything to the lady to handle. Song Qingshu knew that he was now in a very dangerous situation, because in Mo Immortal Castle, once you were deemed to be a worthless person, the usual outcome was death. Over the years, Song Qingshu had helped the castle deal with some worthless people, but he had never thought that one day, he would face the same problem as these people. Working in Mo Immortal Castle didn't give him any face, value was everything. The lord of the castle never liked to do business at a loss. Somewhat fearful, he opened the text message from the lady of the castle. The content of the message was very simple. The lady was asking about the trial of Mo Immortal Water. This was the potion that had caused the 3 Foundation Establishment high school students to mutate and become delirious. Song Qingshu was well aware that this was his last chance. No matter what, he had to do it beautifully. After thinking about how to phrase his words, Song Qingshu quickly replied, don't worry, lady. Everything has been arranged. I've already ordered people to secretly promote the trial of Mo Immortal Water. Less than a few microseconds after sending the message, the lady instantly replied with the speed of her hand, which she had been single for several thousand years. That's good. This time, the Mo Immortal Water has been modified to reduce the risk of mutation. However, we still need to find people to conduct human experiments. How are the 3 students who had problems with their bodies? Song Qingshu thought for a while, but in the end didn't reveal the matter of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and that youngster. He replied, "Don't worry, lady, I've given them hush money and arranged for them to stay in a separate ward in the hospital. Nothing will get out." The lady quickly replied, "I know everything you're doing now. Yesterday, someone already came to the hospital to find out about the 3 students, right?" When Song Qingshu saw the message, he couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. The lady then sent another message. "You don't need to be nervous. As long as this matter hasn't been exposed by the media, you won't be in danger for the time being. If you do a good job with the trial of Mo Immortal Water, you can completely make up for your previous mistakes. The Lord of the Castle still believes in you, so he hasn't given up on you right away." Song Qingshu, "Thank you, lady. I've already contacted a school to promote Mo Immortal Water as an educational institution." The lady, "No need to thank me." "That's right, what's the name of this school? You can find someone to test it first. In case something goes wrong." Chapter 148. It was June 1st on Tuesday in the 6th week of the semester. It happened to be Children's Day. When Wang Ling went to school, he noticed that there were a lot more naughty kids on the streets because of the holiday. When he came to class in the morning, Master of Dopey had already finished copying his homework. Sitting there, he pretended to stroke his beard as he sighed about how time waited for no man. I'm old. I'm old. I don't even have Children's Day anymore. Do you know, according to the latest age classification table issued by the Cultivation United Nations, people at our age are already having a midlife crisis. Speaking up to this point, Super Chen inexplicably started to feel a little sad. He felt that he actually looked quite sunny and not very old-fashioned. Because he was addicted to fitness and sports every day, he had a body full of muscles that boys were envious of. Sexy muscles and lines would add points to a boy's temperament. But even so, when he had been on the subway this morning, a cute little boy of 4 or 5 years old had still called him uncle. 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 At that time, Super Chen's heart had felt like it had been struck by lightning. His entire body had been electrocuted. This feeling was as bad as your girlfriend grabbing your lapel and seriously asking you who you should save first if you and your mom fell into the water at the same time. Uncle my ass. At the very least, you should call him Big Brother. But after Super Chen reacted, he felt that this analogy wasn't very appropriate, because he didn't have a girlfriend. And so, just like that, Super Chen and Master of Dopey, the duo who thought they were already doddering in their midlife crisis, were depressed over this matter for the whole morning. Speaking of Super Chen's muscles, Wang Ling also quietly rubbed his little belly. It was soft and very bouncy. Wang Ling analyzed the reason for his bulging belly. The main reason was that the limited edition beef ramen-flavored crispy noodle snacks that the old man had brought back from south of Tianhe had been too delicious. One night, he couldn't help but eat a box of them, and this was the price he had to pay for not having restraint. But a lot of young people nowadays didn't know how to control themselves. Wang Ling felt that he was actually a typical example. He didn't need to eat, but there were times when he was greedy. Most people wouldn't understand the world of a foodie. But Wang Ling didn't have to worry about gaining weight, he could just get rid of the extra flesh on his body when he got home. This was the reason why Wang Ling couldn't get fat. Gaining weight was something that couldn't be stopped. Sometimes, if one wasn't careful, one would grow fat. Wang Ling had always felt that there were two kinds of people at school who were very similar and could both be categorized as bitches. The first was a straight-A student who said that he had failed the exam after the exam. And the second was the skinny guy who bragged every day that he wouldn't get fat no matter how much he ate. At 2:00 in the afternoon, it was supposed to be time for the physical education class. Everyone was ready to rush to the sports field to take a breath of fresh air. However, the PE teacher appeared at the door of the class. Judging from his bitter expression, everyone immediately knew that today's PE class would most likely be cancelled again. Teacher Pan's chemistry class, Teacher Han Mimi's English class, Teacher Lu Ziming's mathematics class, no one dared to hog these classes. Whenever there was a school anniversary event, most of the time was taken up by PE class. Therefore, in school, the first unlucky person would definitely be the physical education teacher. The physical education teacher, Yi Han, has a head of naturally curly blonde hair, and looks rather tall and sturdy. Furthermore, through reading his memories, Wang Ling knew that Teacher Yi had a special hobby. He liked to clamp a towel between his legs and repeatedly rub it back and forth with each hand. It was said that this move was the famous move of the legendary father of sports philosophy, Harrington, which had the miraculous effect of strengthening muscles and bones and maintaining blood flow. Teacher Yi usually kept a low profile at school. He never competed with other teachers for class. As long as there was a need for physical education, he was the right person to look for. This was the so-called honest people are always easy to bully. Number 60 High School had accepted Mo Immortal Castle's advertisement, and Headmaster Chin had given him the task of having each teacher in charge play a lecture video to promote Mo Immortal Castle in class. Given Teacher Pan's personality, of course she wouldn't be willing to take up Wang Ling's class time. So, Teacher Yi was out of luck. Standing on the dais, Teacher Yi helplessly put down the blue notebook in his hand. He had originally planned to test the children in class today for a 1-kilometer run. If they couldn't run within 10 seconds, they would all fail. There were only 15 students in grade 1, class 3, so it wouldn't take a lot of time to test all of them. However, Teacher Pan still found him and asked him to play an educational lecture video provided by Mo Immortal Castle in PE class. Students, you have to understand me, I'm also very helpless. While Teacher Yi complained on the dais, the boys complained under the dais. Only Li Xianjing took the opportunity to take out his homework with an indifferent expression on his face and quickly started to do it. This was the reason why Li Xianjing didn't bring his homework home after school, because he would finish all of it in class. Teacher Yi used the classroom projector to play Mo Immortal Castle's so-called educational video, which was similar to an educational lecture. All the students in the elite class were already well aware of the routine of this kind of private education organization program. If this kind of program was put in the middle of the program or in the last few minutes, it would definitely start to promote the organization's peripheral products. As expected, when the program came to an end, the female host on the dais suddenly said in a clear voice, "Next, let's welcome the study leader from Mo Immortal Castle with a round of applause to recommend a learning aid product to us." A fatty with a 5-stripe logo on his shoulder appeared on the screen. In terms of physique alone, he was thicker than Master of Dopey. He didn't look very handsome, but everyone recognized him. This was the top scorer in last year's college entrance examination, Tan Juming, who had directly entered a key cultivation university 211 with a super high score of 197,000. People gave him the nickname, 5-Stripe Leader. At that time, the news media had all hissed because this person had directly received a government subsidy of 3 super panacea pills. 3 whole super panacea pills, this was absolutely a godlike subsidy. Furthermore, it was said that this leader had only taken one of them, and had already broken through to the middle golden core stage. Standing on the dais, the leader shared his so-called secret to learning. Then, with a flash of spirit light, a bottle of potion appeared in his hand. He pinched it between two fingers and made a big peace sign with the camera. This. Mo Immortal Water. This is my secret to learning. Wang Ling immediately knew that this guy was definitely that mutated potion. When Wang Ling looked up, he was astonished to find that this potion had actually been improved. It had clearly been black before, but now it was actually rainbow-colored. And the most frightening thing was that right after the leader's promotion, the female host on the dais presented a joint appraisal certificate from 4 experts. These were the legendary 4 leading figures in the healthcare industry. Miracle Dr. 100 Changes Lu Hongbin, Diabetes Divine Han Li Chiming, Supreme Rheumatism Wang Jijin, Medicine Emperor Gao Zhenzhong with kidney deficiency. Chapter 149. It was actually quite common for educational institutions to promote healthcare products, but Wang Ling really felt that Mo Immortal Castle had come to the wrong place. They had overlooked Lotus Sunday. As the young miss of a pharmaceutical company, she was naturally very sensitive to drugs. And it wasn't uncommon to see fake healthcare products on the market nowadays. She hadn't heard of any of the 4 experts in the video advertisement, so she was a little worried. During the break between classes, Lotus Sun called steward Lin San. Lu Hongbin. Li Chiming. Wang Jijin. Gao Zhenzhong. On the other end of the line, old butler Lin frowned. His expression was a little serious. Eldest miss, are you sure that these 4 people were mentioned in the video? Lotus Sun nodded. There's no mistake. Old butler Lin fell silent. These 4 people often appear on some late-night health programs, pretending to be experts. Actually, he didn't have a physician's qualification certificate. People gave me the nicknames of Eastern Medicine, Western Lunatic, Southern Virtuous, Northern Mongolia. Lotus Sun was a little anxious. Doesn't this Mo Immortal Water have no guarantee? Lin San replied, it's more than that. There must be other risks associated with this kind of product that has a false certificate. Then Uncle Lin, what should we do now? Lotus Sun asked. Lin San nodded. Don't worry, eldest Mississippi. I'll give Headmaster Chen a call right now and use my authority as the school board to ban this educational institution from selling their products in the school. It had to be said that Lin San was very efficient. As soon as the call ended, the school on the other side immediately made the relevant joint work. Song Qing-shu was anxious. He called Headmaster Chen's office. Headmaster Chen, you took our advertising fees. How can you go back on your word? Headmaster Chen had an apologetic expression on his face. We've already released the video advertisement in all the classes in the school. It's just that the board of directors of our number 60 high school doesn't think it's very reliable to sell Mo Immortal Water in school, and they're afraid of taking the risk. Do you want me to refund you the money? Song Qing-shu's expression darkened. I don't care. Give me the director's phone number. I'll call them right away. Headmaster Chen said helplessly, Mr. Song, it's better if you don't waste your energy. Our board of directors is very busy every day. You can't call them right now. They would probably have to wait in line. At this rate, it'll probably take another half a year. Song Qing-shu, who's on the board of directors? Headmaster Chen, oh. It's Sun Kaming, the CEO of Heartwarming Water Curtain Group. His daughter is still studying here. Don't you know, Mr. Song? When Song Qing-shu heard this, he felt like crying but had no tears. This school clearly had the CEO of Heartwarming Water Curtain Group as a board member, but they still pretended to be poor every day. Hey! Was it a demon spirit? He wanted to report someone here for cheating advertising fees. Sometimes, when people were really unlucky, they couldn't even fill their teeth with cold water. Song Qing-shu had only chosen the most inconspicuous school based on the statistics of the major colleges and universities in the city bureau. God knew that the young mistress of Hogwarts Water Curtain Group was studying there. Now that Immortal Castle couldn't sell it at school, it could already be considered half a failure, but if he stopped now, it would mean that he had already lost. Song Qing-shu had truly experienced the castle lord's heartlessness. Over the years, many people had died in the hands of the lord of the castle and were refined into demonic ghosts as pets. Whether it was a veteran employee who had been with the company for many years or a newbie who had just joined, as long as their performance wasn't up to standard and they didn't make any achievements, the only fate awaiting them in Immortal Castle was death. However, Song Qing-shu didn't want to resign himself to his fate. He decided to run away before the mission was declared a complete failure. In a high-end luxury apartment in Songhai City, Song Qing-shu was sorting out his belongings. He had used a forged ID card to buy a plane ticket, and was going abroad to hide for a while. Since Song Qing-shu still hadn't been removed from his position, it wouldn't be difficult for him to create a fake identity. Furthermore, based on what he had learned over the years, Immortal Castle's current strength wouldn't be enough to chase him abroad. As long as everything went smoothly, Song Qing-shu felt that his escape plan had an 80% chance of succeeding. Song Qing-shu checked the briefcase for the last time and confirmed that he had brought all the fake documents to hide his true identity. Then, he separated all the fake documents into a wallet. Although they were all fake IDs, they were enough to pass them off as genuine. He had already gotten the help of the brother in the City Cultivation Police's technical department to change his online identity information, so it would be foolproof even if he went online to verify his identity. There were really too many things in the apartment, and because he was pressed for time, Song Qing-shu couldn't take everything with him. But he didn't have to worry about not being able to fit them all. It was much easier for cultivators to run away than for ordinary people, and an ordinary spatial magic treasure could take care of everything. In addition to the leather wallet full of fake IDs, Song Qing-shu's suitcase now contained clothes, magic treasures, and some of his treasured elixirs. Song Qing-shu was sure that after the lord of the castle found out that he had run away, the first thing he would do would be to block all the bank accounts under his name. Furthermore, withdrawing a large amount of cash from the bank in a short period of time would raise suspicions, so after careful consideration, Song Qing-shu decided to leave with the magic treasures and elixirs. After he left the country, he could sell some of the magic treasures that he had left and used for a considerable amount of money. Everything was ready. Carrying a small briefcase, Song Qing-shu had just opened the door of the apartment when he saw a tall woman in a black jacket and sunglasses with long hair down to her waist standing in the doorway. The moment she saw Song Qing-shu, the corners of her mouth curled into a sneer. "Mr. Song Qing-shu, sure enough, you still want to run away. You are." Song Qing-shu was stunned. This woman had to be an assassin sent by the lord or the lady. "I'm Oswa. I work for the lady of the castle. The lady already knew that you would run away." As this Miss Oswa spoke, she played lightly with her newly manicured nails. "Do you think you can fool the lady of the castle with this little trick of yours? There have been too many people who have run away over the years, and you and I can't kill them all." Song Qing-shu instantly broke out in a cold sweat. He could feel that this woman was very strong. At the very least, she was at the soul formation stage. She was more than enough to kill him. "Miss Oswa, please let me go. Whatever you want, I can give it to you." Song Qing-shu hugged his briefcase and trembled as he spoke. He was afraid in his heart, but he also sighed with emotion. In all the years he had held a high position in Immortal Castle, when had he ever been so submissive? Who would have thought that he would actually be reduced to this point today? "What do you think you can give me? Can't the lord and lady satisfy me?" Miss Oswa spread open her slender fingers, and Song Qing-shu saw her blood-red nails emit a faint golden light. this woman wasn't carrying any magic treasures or weapons, she had actually refined her nails into magic treasures. My nails are as powerful as a 7th-class holy weapon. The woman slowly leaned over, the layer of golden light on her nails surging even more violently as she stared fixedly at Song Qingshu under her sunglasses. A 7th-class holy weapon, Song Qingshu was utterly stupefied. A 9th-class holy weapon could easily injure anyone below the soul formation stage. If these nails with the power of a 7th-class holy weapon scratched him, he would definitely die. Whoosh! Oswa brandished her nails and directly grabbed at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu closed his eyes tightly. That grab went straight through his briefcase, leaving 5 deep holes in it. Don't worry, you won't feel any pain. However, after Miss Oswa's nails entered the briefcase, they seemed to be stopped by something and couldn't go any further. What's going on? She struggled with all her might. Then, there was a crack. She was horrified to find that her nails had actually been broken. Then, a huge force came from Song Qingshu's small briefcase, and Miss Oswa was actually sent flying and crashed into the wall behind her. The incredible impact caused Oswa to spit out a mouthful of blood, and she stared at Song Qingshu in disbelief. What on earth is inside? Song Qingshu quickly opened the briefcase to check. Very quickly, he found a pair of glowing long johns. Holding them up with both hands, Song Qingshu had a stunned expression on his face, because he had brought these long johns with him from the Wang family's small villa. He had been too anxious when he had been tidying up his clothes before, so he had put these long johns in as well. Chapter 150. At the elevator door on the 17th floor of the luxury apartment, Oswa leaned against the wall, gritting her teeth in pain. She hadn't expected Song Qingshu's briefcase to have such a powerful magic weapon. Not only had it blocked her attack, but it had also doubled the force back at her. The backlash just now had directly broken 2 of her ribs and seemed to have a slight concussion. She felt dizzy. What kind of magic weapon is this? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and pinched the glowing long johns as he looked at Oswa, shivering. It's long johns. Oswa. Then, Song Qingshu glanced at the logo and immediately realized that this pair of long johns was actually made by Nokia. No wonder it was so hard. Do you think you can escape? Oswa clutched her chest. A few years ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator at the same realm as you. He thought himself clever and tried to fake his death to seize a body again. But unfortunately, he was branded by the lord of the castle. As long as he was branded, the possession spell wouldn't be able to proceed smoothly. Once you enter Mo Immortal Castle, everyone will be branded. You can't escape. Song Qingshu frowned and lowered his head to look at the long johns in his hands. He had brought these long johns from that family's villa in the wilderness. At that time, his subordinate had been so scared by the owner's terrifying spiritual pressure that he had peed himself, so that the kind owner had given him a pair of long johns for him to change into. After that, he had run into that great death-courting senior outside the villa, and in the end, he had also peed himself. Thus, the long johns had ended up in his hands. At that moment, Song Qingshu lowered his head in deep thought. He was surprised to find that the source of all his failures seemed to have started from that unremarkable little villa. Furthermore, that great death-courting senior had a close relationship with that family. Song Qingshu was increasingly convinced that the owner of this villa was no ordinary person. If even a pair of long johns could be refined into a magic weapon and burst forth with such astonishing power, then wouldn't stealing a kitchen knife from inside be able to split the world? Miss Oswa, since you're already injured, I think it's better for you to hurry back and recuperate. We'll never meet again. Song Qingshu gripped the long johns tightly, then grabbed the briefcase with 5 small holes in it and turned to head down the stairs. Even though Miss Oswald was injured, Song Qing-shu didn't think he could kill her. This was the lady of the castle's right-hand man, who knew what kind of magic treasure the other party would take out. But just as Song Qing-shu was about to open the door and wave goodbye, Miss Oswald suddenly clutched her chest and slowly stood up from the ground. "You want to run?" At the crucial moment, Oswald didn't hesitate to take out a multicolored stone the size of a cobblestone. Spirit energy surged out of the stone and a force separated from it. Song Qing-shu found that he couldn't move forward. Wuji stone. Song Qing-shu recognized the stone at a glance. This Wuji stone is a magic treasure specially developed by the castle lord. You have the mark of the castle lord on you, so it's impossible for you to escape the punishment of the Wuji stone. I was worried that something might go wrong, so I borrowed it from the lady of the castle. Ozwa had never expected to use the Wuji stone to detain someone. In her opinion, dealing with this Song Qing-shu would be a piece of cake. This Wuji stone was like a super strong magnet that firmly latched onto Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu did his best to resist this force, but he couldn't take another step forward. He was just a little bit away from the corridor. Just a little bit more. He would be able to escape this demoness grasp. On the other side, Ozwa took advantage of the Wuji stone's pull to slowly approach Song Qing-shu's back. "I told you, you can't escape." In the previous attack, the nails on Ozwa's right hand had been completely broken. But she still had her left hand. "I don't know how you refined this magic treasure in the shape of long johns, but this time, I'll go all out. I'll use all my strength to send you to the netherworld." Ozwa wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Without the slightest bit of mercy, she endured the pain of her broken ribs and stretched out her claws to grab Song Qing-shu. The nails on her left hand glowed with a faint golden light, and the strength of this grab was enough to pierce through Song Qing-shu's skin. Although Song Qing-shu really wanted to complain, this wasn't king magic treasure in the shape of long johns at all. This was a real pair of long johns. But seeing the woman's merciless attack, Song Qing-shu was also angry. "Fuck. I'm not running anymore." He had thoroughly experienced the Wuji stone's power. As long as he had the Lord of the Castle's brand on him, he wouldn't be able to escape after taking out the Wuji stone. But this Wuji stone could only restrict his advance like a magnet, and couldn't truly lock him in place. Begging for mercy was useless, and running wasn't an option. Song Qing-shu could only grit his teeth and look at the woman in front of him. He roared like a man, "I'll fight you to the death." This time, Ozwa's strength was clearly much fiercer than before, and the strong wind carried destructive power. It was an ordinary claw strike without any magical embellishments, and all the glass on this floor was instantly shattered by the strong wind. Song Qing-shu felt as if his face was no longer his own. There was a burning sensation of pain, and his skin was trembling like a ghost, and all he could do was raise his glowing long johns at this critical moment and shiver uncontrollably. Boom! There was a loud explosion on the 17th floor. Smoke and dust suddenly rose as Ozwa's claw struck the long johns with all her might. But this time, it only created a series of sparks. Instead, the strong toughness of the long johns caused the attack to rebound. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The woman was sent flying by this force. Song Qing-shu looked at the human-shaped hole in the 17th floor's wall, his heart still pounding with fear. After the chaotic battle, the dust seemed to have settled, and the entire 17th floor had suffered great destruction as if it had been hit by the apocalypse. Luckily, there was only one resident on each floor of this luxury apartment, otherwise Song Qing-shu really couldn't imagine how many innocent people would be affected. Downstairs. What are you yelling for? How uncultured. Everyone has to go to work tomorrow. I've already called the property management. Just you wait. The resident upstairs was a golden core cultivator, and he yelled at the top of his lungs. Song Qing-shu snapped out of his daze, and realized that it was time to escape. He hurriedly grabbed his briefcase and the protective long johns, and fled down the stairs. On the other side, Ozwa, the killer's subordinate whom the lady of the castle had sent, had suffered a huge backlash, and was sent flying a full kilometer out of the building by a blast of air. In the end, she turned into a shooting star and crashed into the green belt near the highway. Ozwa had died. Her ribs were broken, her hands were crushed, her fingernails were all broken, and she was bleeding profusely, but she wasn't dead, and was only in shock. That pair of long johns had been enchanted by Wang Ling, and it had survived 2 consecutive backlashes. Chapter 151. It was hard to imagine how ferocious a soul formation cultivator's strength must have been to directly go into shock after suffering 2 backlashes. In the evening, Director Lee received another call from his leader. He would continue to deal with a patient who was on the Green Rescue Channel. On the way, Director Lee's assistant was reporting the situation to him. "How's the patient's condition now?" "Initial diagnosis is that it's shock caused by a concussion." Director Lee was startled. How could it be another F***King concussion? Were cultivators' brains so fragile nowadays? What caused it? According to surveillance footage from Haixing Road, the cultivation police station found that the patient fell from the sky and hit the green belt. The cause is still under investigation. The assistant replied, but initial diagnosis is that the patient's injuries have nothing to do with the fall, and her concussion had already formed before the fall. The cultivation police station has sent Officer Wang, who is very experienced in criminal investigation. Based on his assessment, he believes that the real cause of the patient's injuries is related to the explosion in that high-end apartment building a kilometer away. Director Lee nodded. I understand. I'm on my way there now. Follow up on the situation, and once you understand the cause of the patient's injuries, be sure to let me know right away. The city police station has given me another order to save this person's life at all costs. The assistant, don't worry, Director, Officer Wang is very experienced, and he's doing his best to investigate the case. He's analyzing the cause of the case. Just now, he finished watching an entire season of Detective Conan. For some reason, Director Lee wanted to cry but had no tears. Sure enough, studying medicine couldn't save a cultivator. At around 10:00 that night, a person who shouldn't have been there appeared outside the Wang family's small villa. Song Qing-shu stood at the entrance of the villa with a briefcase with 5 holes in his left hand and a pair of long johns tightly clenched in his right hand. According to Song Qing-shu's original plan, he should have taken a supersonic plane to Mishu Nation. But at the last moment, Song Qing-shu realized that he had chickened out. He had fled Mo Immortal Castle in an attempt to break away from the organization, and had even seriously injured the lady's right-hand man, Ozwa. The lady would definitely mobilize all her forces to hunt him down and kill him. Song Qing-shu felt that he had no way out. Even if he escaped abroad now, it was still very unsafe. What should I do? Song Qing-shu pondered for a long time in the small garden downstairs of the apartment complex, quietly reviewing his life. He felt that everything he had done since he was young had not been smooth sailing. Once, he deliberately tricked people in a ranked match. In the end, he met a youth with explosive hand speed. That person called himself Yi Xiao and used a hero to smash 5 people on the other side. He killed the other side more than 30 times in a row, and in the end, the other side surrendered. Once again, he snatched a lollipop from a child at home, only to be beaten up instead. Not only did that child say that he was a disciple of Shaolin Temple, that he had learned Qigong from Qigong Master Wang Lin, and that he had learned the S-shaped snakeskin movement from the talk show actor Bobo. Another time, he peeped at a young lady bathing, and was almost caught and beaten into a muscle by her boyfriend. That person claimed to be the campus belle's personal expert, and that he had countless girlfriends, all of whom he King got along with. While Song Qing-shu was thinking about life, the sirens of the cultivation police car and the fire department's rescue vehicle, accompanied by a dazzling red warning light, swaggered through the entrance of the residential area. In that moment, it was as if a drop of glycerin had been poured into Song Qing-shu's brain, and he instantly figured it out. Now that things had come to this, he had nowhere to go. If he had to find a way out, the Wang family's small villa was his only way out. But what reason did he have to look for the seniors in this villa? Song Qing-shu looked at the long johns in his hand, which had saved his life twice, and clenched his teeth, so now, he stood at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. It was past 10 o'clock, but no one was asleep in the Wang family's small villa. Mother Wang was upstairs brushing up on her face and putting on a face mask, while Father Wang was still working hard for his readers in the study. Downstairs, the old man was watching a new large-scale ethical drama called Take Me Along, Old Driver. This drama told the story of a disabled but strong-willed retired driver who, in order to realize his dream of becoming a champion driver, took his two daughters racing on Mount Chiu-Ming, and in the end trained them to become champion drivers. The old man was lost in the drama when the villa's doorbell suddenly rang. He was old and a little hard of hearing, and only came back to his senses after the doorbell rang for a while. At the same time, Wang Ling, who was on the second floor, also looked down. "Who is it?" With his hands behind his back, the old man strolled over unhurriedly. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a man standing at the entrance, looking a little down and out. Judging from his appearance, the man was already in his 30s. He looked a little haggard, had a scraggly beard, and looked a little slovenly. The old man narrowed his eyes. "You are?" Song Qing-shu probed him with his spiritual senses, and found that the old man standing in front of him seemed to be just an ordinary old man without any spirit energy to speak of. Even so, Song Qing-shu still didn't dare be the slightest bit negligent. What if the other party was deliberately hiding his strength? "Senior." He looked at the old man timidly, and after a moment, he finally took a deep breath. As if summoning up his courage, he looked at the old man in front of him and held up the long johns with both hands. I'm here to return the long johns." Old man Wang was blank for a moment, and then realized that the long johns really did belong to him. This was because old Master Shin had bought these long johns from the textile market back then. During the mass sale, old Master Shin had bought dozens of them at once. He could tell at a glance that they were familiar to him. "They're my long johns." The old man nodded, then looked at Song Qing-shu and asked, "Do you have a problem?" Even though it had been almost an hour since Oz assassination attempt, Song Qing-shu's hands were still trembling. He was a little speechless, and didn't know what to say. When all was said and done, the old man was an experienced veteran. When he was young, he had seen all kinds of people. He had also been a chef for decades, and had seen all kinds of diners. Like a roundworm, the old man knew what those diners were thinking when they frowned. The old man could tell that Song Qing-shu's real purpose wasn't as simple as returning the long johns. He probably had something else to ask of him. Furthermore, it was already so late, so it was obviously a little unusual for him to come knocking at this time. Chapter 152. Song Qing-shu tiptoed through the door, feeling a little guilty. After all, in order to fight for the stone ghost mask a few times in the past, he had even sent his subordinates to forcefully snatch it from them. But now, Song Qing-shu had completely thought it through. The strength of this family was already not something he could go against. A pair of long johns had been able to send the lady of the castle's capable subordinate, Ozwa, flying with a backlash on the spot. How terrifyingly strong was this senior who could refine such a magic treasure? The old man poured Song Qingshu a glass of water, put it on the coffee table, and pushed it in front of him. "Do you have anything to say?" The old man had always been an easygoing person. His eyes would narrow into slits when he smiled in particular, making him look very benevolent. However, Song Qingshu didn't dare let down his guard in the Wang family's small villa. Although he hadn't sensed the slightest trace of spirit energy from the old man, there was a good saying, those with squinting eyes were monsters. Who knew whether this great senior was testing him or not? And this glass of water, could he drink it? Should he drink it? Or was this a test from the senior? Song Qingshu stared at the glass of water, lost in endless thought. This scene was exactly the same as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression at the dinner table back then, wondering whether he should eat the broccoli that Grandfather Wang had picked out for him or not. Song Qingshu realized that coming to the Wang family's small villa was a little bad. He kept feeling like someone was staring at him from behind. He didn't understand why this villa, which clearly looked ordinary and didn't even have a spirit array to decorate it, gave off such an oppressive feeling that came from the depths of one's soul. After 10 minutes of silence, Song Qingshu felt like a child who had been caught copying homework by the class teacher in the morning, and finally confessed everything in front of the old man. Because Song Qingshu talked a lot, he almost told the whole story to the old master. The old man was getting on in years, and couldn't react for a moment. After sorting out his thoughts with great effort, he replied unhurriedly, "Oh, you were the one who wanted to buy that mask in the first place. But that mask was taken away by Little Lei." Little Lei. Song Qingshu felt like his 3 views had been overturned. Nowadays, how many people would dare call that great death-courting senior that? Suddenly, Song Qingshu felt even more respect for Old Man Wang. Even if he carefully searched the old man's body, he still couldn't find any spiritual power. However, this old man was already a great senior in his heart. Moreover, Song Qingshu had no doubt that this old man was a living fossil-level figure. Because you didn't buy the mask for your boss, now your boss wants to kill you. Is that what you mean? The old man sighed. He felt that young people nowadays were too noisy. It was just a mask. It was not a big deal. It was all about fighting and killing. But the old man felt that he didn't have the ability to help Song Qingshu in this matter. After thinking for a bit, he stretched out his leg and lightly scraped Loopy Toad's little butt, intending to have Loopy Toad call Wang Ling down. Loopy Toad's rest had been disturbed, and it was a little grumpy. Song Qingshu glanced at the Akita with strange fur. He thought it was just a domesticated pet, but when it was kicked up by the old man, it glared at him angrily. Song Qingshu felt like he had seen this look somewhere before. This definitely wasn't an ordinary dog. For some reason, the moment he met the dog's eyes, Song Qingshu saw a demon king standing on top of a cliff, leading thousands of demons. The demon king stood there, his eyes sharp and full of vigor. With a flip of his hand, he could destroy heaven and earth. Song Qingshu was dazed. Was he imagining things? The old man, our Wang Ling, brought this dog back from school. The school leaders came and forbade us from raising it. But this little guy is very protective of its owner and is very easy to raise. I see. Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief at the old man's explanation. May I ask, Senior, who is Wang Ling? Wang Ling is my grandson. My grandson is still in high school. Still, in high school. Song Qingshu felt that his 3 views had been refreshed. What kind of family was this? Song Qingshu, which high school is it? The old man, number 60 high school. Song Qingshu, under normal circumstances, the old man would get excited at the mention of his grandson. The pride and arrogance of the older generation toward their grandchildren was indescribable. But he couldn't say too much to Song Qingshu. The old man had never been willing to get involved in matters between cultivators. Being able to sit here and listen to Song Qingshu ramble on for so long was purely because the old man was displaying his humanitarian spirit as a resident committee grandpa. If it was a quarrel between a couple, the old man felt that he might be able to mediate on behalf of Bai Wanqing, but when it came to cultivation, the Wang family could only rely on Wang Ling. Actually, while he was still on the second floor, Wang Ling had already heard Song Qingshu complaining to the old man. He was now being hunted down by Imo Immortal Castle, and even if he escaped abroad, he might not be able to protect himself, so he could only come to the Wang family for help. Logically speaking, Wang Ling didn't want to get involved at all, but just as he was about to deal with it coldly, his damn eyelids started to twitch wildly again. It had been a long time since his eyelid gave him a warning. If he ignored this matter, the outcome would be even worse. After deep contemplation, Wang Ling slowly walked downstairs. He was still wearing big white bunny pajamas, and the soft adorable clothes and that unsmiling, expressionless face formed a strong contrast. When Wang Ling went downstairs, the old man had already returned to his side to continue watching his drama, leaving Song Qingshu alone. Song Qingshu was a little nervous and a little confused. He didn't know why this great senior had pushed this matter onto his grandson, who was still in high school. But when he saw Wang Ling approach him in pajamas, which contrasted greatly with his appearance, Song Qingshu was completely stupefied. Because even if the person in front of him turned to ash, he would never, ever forget him. He was certain that this was the youngster in white who had appeared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa when he and the 10 Saints had gone to fight over the stone ghost mask, and who had caused Great Saint and Second Saint to die from the backlash. Not only had this youngster killed Great Saint and Second Saint, he had also incited Third Saint to defect. The most important thing was that he had a very close relationship with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. In any case, this youngster was the main culprit behind their current predicament. But Song Qingshu had never expected that after going around in a big circle, the person he had finally found to help would actually be this youngster. Song Qingshu felt really angry, but now, he was already at his wit's end. Apart from this youngster, no one could help him. On the side, Loopy Toad glanced at Song Qingshu and silently lowered its head. It then walked over to Song Qingshu and stretched out its paw to pat his leg comfortingly. Chapter 153. He called grenade-throwing Senior Immortal over from Wenxian Garden. Song Qingshu had come to ask for help. This matter needed to be considered at length. After receiving the message, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately galloped over on sheep. It took him less than 5 minutes to get to the Wang family's house. After grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took sheep back, he entrusted one of his little brothers who was good at upgrading immortal tools to repair the car. When he had heard that Wang Ling was looking for him that night, he had seized the opportunity to return the tricycle. When he reached the entrance, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw that the main door of the Wang family's villa was slightly ajar. Wang Ling had opened it through the air. Then, Song Qingshu saw Great Death-Courting Senior and a pink-haired loli wearing blue lace suspenders and shorts enter the door. The little loli looked like she was only 6 years old. Her hair was tied up in a bun and she was wearing a gray windbreaker. Her big eyes blinked as she looked around. Song Qingshu's heart couldn't help jumping when he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal holding little Loli's hand. He had never heard that this Great Death-Courting Senior had a daughter. Where had this little Loli come from? After entering, the first thing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw was Grandfather Wang watching a drama, which was the recently popular Take Me Old Driver. He did not dare to disturb the old man watching the drama, but at this moment, he had already decided that when he returned home today, he would carefully watch the drama from beginning to end. Who knows, he might be able to comprehend the mysteries of heaven. Yes. Great Senior's every action has a purpose. Leading sheep in front of Wang Ling, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was stunned when he saw Wang Ling's pajamas. Damn, Brother Ling, aren't you a little cute today? Then, he cupped his fists in salute to Wang Ling, who was wearing big white bunny pajamas. "Brother Ling, I've brought you sheep." Wang Ling stared at the little girl and raised his eyebrows. Grenade-throwing senior immortal rubbed Lolita's little head. "Brother Ling, are you relieved now?" Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand and nodded. This already wasn't sheep's first time materializing. It was just that the last few times it had materialized, because of the rust and peeling paint on the tricycle, the clothes and accessories it had materialized had been too horrible to look at. Now that he had taken care of it again, it was indeed much better. Sheep pointed at grenade-throwing senior immortal with a face full of excitement. "This uncle found someone to help me paint, wax and lubricate it. It's very comfortable." Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that there was something strange about this. After listening to Song Qingshu's explanation of what had happened, grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at him and laughed. "It turns out you were the one who sent that bunch of people who fought us for the stone ghost mask back then. Now that he's been abandoned and is being hunted, he's come to us for help. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place?" Song Qingshu sighed and revealed an expression of great bitterness and hatred. "Now that things have come to this, I have no way out. I can only seek help from the two seniors. If the two seniors can help me, I can help the two seniors get what they want. Tell me about it first." Grenade-throwing senior immortal leaned back on the sofa and hugged Sheep from behind. Sheep twisted her body with a look of disgust, struggling to free herself. "I know that the seniors have been looking for information on the maker of the stone ghost mask," Song Qingshu said as he looked at Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal. Hearing this, Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal's eyes lit up. "You have a lead." Song Qingshu nodded solemnly. "Yes." This information had been given to him by Zhou Jia, the leader of Green Gang, and was more than 90% accurate. In fact, Song Qingshu knew that he was in no position to negotiate at all. Cultivators nowadays had all sorts of ways to extract memories, and given the strength of these two people, it would be as easy as turning over their hands to read his memories. But he wasn't stupid. Long before he had come to the Wang family's villa, he had sealed his memories with a curse. If the curse was forcibly removed, all his memories would disappear. Song Qingshu was well aware that this was his only bargaining chip. Even so, he still couldn't guarantee that this senior immortal didn't have any other way to pry into his memories. After all, this was a great senior who could transform a pair of long johns into a soul formation cultivator and cause him to suffer a backlash. "You're smart to use a curse to seal your memories." Grenade-throwing senior immortal's eyes twinkled as he looked at Song Qingshu. This was the heavenly eye of a soul formation cultivator. Although it was far inferior to Wang Ling's, it wasn't hard for it to pick up some clues. But very quickly, grenade-throwing senior immortal frowned when he noticed a black stain on Song Qingshu's soul, and he exclaimed, "A soul brand?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal had seen a lot of soul brands. The more dangerous a brand was, the darker its color would be. For example, the soul brand on Song Qingshu's body had already F****king turned into a black fungus. Song Qingshu lowered his head and sighed. The lord of the castle plants a soul brand like this on everyone who works in Mo Immortal Castle. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cupped his chin in contemplation. There were actually a lot of ways to remove a soul brand. But Song Qingshu's brand was already too deep, and it was very difficult to remove it with ordinary methods. The Lord of the Castle brand on Song Qingshu's soul was like a time bomb. Not only was there a risk of its location being exposed, it was also extremely easy for the person to be remotely cursed. "Brother Ling, do you have any way to remove the soul brand?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked with a frown. Wang Ling nodded, then got up and went to the bathroom on the first floor of the Wang family's small villa. He rummaged through a cupboard and took out a red bag. On the side, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Song Qingshu were stupefied when they saw this familiar packaging. Grenade throwing senior immortal. Brother Ling, this is. Wang Ling opened the bag. The pure white granules in the bag glowed with a golden light and gave off the fragrance of honey locust. This was a bag of mystical washing powder which he had already blessed. At the same time, a woman approached outside the Wang family's small villa. She was wearing a cheongsam and a pair of red high heels. She had followed Song Qingshu's soul brand to this place. This is the place. Do you think the lord of the castle won't know if you hide here? The woman sneered. She had already smelled Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu, come out and die. I'm here on the lady's orders to avenge Ozwa. The woman didn't move, but her furious voice pierced straight into the heart and was deafening. But unfortunately, there was no reply to this voice. Damn it. Song Qingshu, if you're willing to be a turtle and don't dare come out, this old lady will charge in. I swear, I'll kill everyone in this villa. The woman in the red cheongsam flew into a rage. Just as the woman was about to storm the villa and carry out her next move, the front door of the Wang family's small villa opened. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.